cycle.
Right, right. So I kind of wanted to talk about how things have changed since I started talking about transgenderism, and I thought you were the perfect guest to have for that. So, anyways, for my people on the live chat in my YouTube channel, hello out there, all the listeners. If you want to become a speaker, that's fine. I will bring you up as it could. Hi, Doc. How are you?
I'm good.
How's it going?
Good.
How you doing?
See, his mic is a little bit low. See that compared to Mary? Mary, that's why you have a good mic, Mary.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, Steve, but Mary Kate and I were going back and forth just earlier, and I posted a couple of pictures.
Okay.
But I just, this is just for real for me.
All right. Well, happy to have you here. Let's kind of dive in here. I've been trying to get Mary in for quite some time. Go ahead and mute while you're not speaking, Doc, because your mic does have some background noise. If you can you mute?
No, I've actually never been able to speak on one of Mary Kate or Hazel's.
I promise.
Yes,
I give you my word. I will give everybody an opportunity. I do that. I have an open forum.
Oh no! Go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt. Go ahead. I'm going to shut up now and just go ahead and do your thing.
All right. For those who don't know that have been living in kind of a vacuum, by the way, can you mute, Doc? I can hear a lot of background noise. Doc. Can you mute? Can you hear me? Hello?
I think you might have to.
Can you mute your mic, Doc? All right, I'll just mute everybody, and then Mary, you can unmute here in a second. There we go. That kind of did it. All right. So, anyways, if you haven't been, haven't kind of been living in a vacuum, Mary Kate, I've kind of reached superstardom on Twitter, doing these listen to trans people, which I think, seriously, is a brilliant idea. It really is a brilliant idea. It is controversial, and I'm kind of a middle centrist person, so I get flack from both sides. I get flack from my transgender friends. I get flack from my non-transgender friends. I get flack from everybody, and that's just the way it is. That's why I have these struggle sessions, because I struggle, because I can't please everybody. So, if you guys don't know, go to my video description. I have Mary Kate's Twitter linked, so you can go follow her. But I'm gonna let her describe kind of what she does on Twitter and how she kind of got known, and then we can discuss, in her view, if things have made any difference since she has been on Twitter since she started these Listen to Trans People, as opposed to years ago when these things started coming around and we started talking about trans in sports, and all hell broke loose back in the Rationale Rules days. So, Mary, you have the floor, and my audience is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much again for having me. So I started a series called Listen to Trans People, where I just read their words from their posts, from their books. I think I've had just a couple videos where I just repost their TikTok videos. And I really am trying to just let their own words tell everybody what is really going on here with with these trans women, quote unquote, and they're just men with fetishes is really what it boils down to. In 99% of cases, they are just men with a fetish for cross-dressing. They talk about how their gender euphoria is actually sexual arousal. They call it a euphoria boner. They talk about how this specific kind of pornography, sissy porn, is what made them trans. They spend all of their time talking about boobs and their girl dicks. I mean, it's really blatant. And then the violence towards women that is expressed by these men is off the charts horrifying.
And you get all your stuff from Reddit, pretty much, right? Because it seems like you get it from Reddit and TikTok.
Yeah, Reddit, TikTok, and here on X too.
Yeah, I guess you do nowadays. I think originally you got most of it off Reddit, and
yes,
and
then the first two, there were a few quotes in the first videos from some of their books too, like Andrea Long Chu. What's his name? Alok Vaid-Menon. But yeah, generally Reddit, because that is like the most active male to female forum that I have found.
It is. And it's funny on Twitter because when I put a hashtag in, like I put the hashtag trans, right? And it's trying to reach an audience for people to try to get a more diverse group, right? Because I don't like echo chambers. I'm antithetical to echo chambers. I like to be challenged. My channel has always been known for controversy, right? And my opinions. And I will stand by opinions and fight for them. But I'm telling you, Mary, how difficult it is to find people willing to come on to try to argue for critical gender theory. It's nearly impossible. I maybe have like two people that I know. I know Planarwalk, who I've known for years before she even transitioned. And I like the fact, by the way, you said 99%. I like the fact you did leave room for 1%. And we'll discuss that. Because somebody like in my live chat's blowing up on YouTube. And one person said, sounds like she's just sampling people who want to speak to her. This is extremely biased, which I'm telling you right now, this is not. I went on, I'm not even joking. I went on Facebook and I went to every transgender group that I could find just about, and they were all one. You had to join and pass all these questions, and they had to approve you. They had to approve all your posts, and and most of them were just sexualized photos. Which, by the way, I'm not against. Right, I'm not a prude. But the problem is there's this subject about transgender, right? That people just want to talk about, just like gays just want to have a group of people that want to talk about being gay and things of that nature. And then there's the people that sexualize the being gay and transsexual. And I don't care one way or another. It's hard because when I'm looking for people that want to have conversations about the topic, I'm not looking for these groups with pornographic pictures in them, right? And so when I typed in hashtag trans on Twitter, boy, was I in for a surprise. I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah, I bet.
But anyways, so if you are trans, by all means, I want to hear from you more than I actually do Mary, no offense, even though I adore Mary. But, I can get people that feel the same way I do very easily. It's the ones that are willing to come in and have a conversation with somebody like Mary or myself that I cannot find. Why is it so difficult, especially nowadays, Mary? Years ago, wasn't that bad?
Because
they would come in and they would talk.
Have an actual.
Good.
They don't come and argue their side because they don't have an argument for it. Like they really don't. If you go on their forums and you look at their posts where they talk about how do I refute the what is a woman question, or how do I convince people that we should be in women's sports. I mean, they talk about how they will do things like, well, what I do is I just get them so frustrated that they don't want to talk to me anymore. Or they'll say, what I do is I go in there and I ask them, okay, define adult. Define this, define that. They don't have an argument, is in my experience why they're not willing to debate.
I agree with you. I don't think there's a lot of rational arguments.
Can I just say one thing?
I will. I promise. I promise. Give me a second. I think you're right about them not having the arguments. But the thing is that they want to argue by assertion, which is a fallacy, right? They just want to assert things rather than have the conversation. And even in my audience, they know that I tend to have very unbiased conversations, and yet I already have people saying it's biased. Well, what makes something biased when I literally have been asking people to come and have conversations for months now on these things, right? So who had a question? I know, Tomato, you have your hand up, but who was just talking that had a question? Go ahead.
Steve, can I interject here?
You can have a question. Yes.
Okay.
Apologies. I am in the UK, and I absolutely, genuinely believe everything about science. And myself, Mary Cate, and I'm fairly sure most normal people in society actually prescribe to being scientists. That means we are male or female. That's a biological fact that we cannot defer from. That's something that when I'm literally millions of years in the ground, someone digs up my skeleton, they will find out that I'm a male and my wife is a female.
And I agree with you, Doc. But hang on. Here's the problem, Doc. Everybody kind of knows this, right? We've had those discussions multiple times when we basically have regurgitated the same things about our opinion, right? What I'm really kind of concerned is more I want to talk about, and your mic is really bad, Doc. It's so much static. It's okay. Can you mute?
Sorry, I apologize.
It's okay. It's just probably because you're halfway around the world. Can you mute your mic real quick and then unmute when you're speaking?
I'm in the UK, so
I know.
and my cat is also attacking me.
That's
right
fine.
now.
Can you mute your mic while you're not speaking, and then when you speak, unmute?
Yeah, I'll
Okay,
mute
cool.
it. Thank you.
Thanks. So what I really, you're not muted.
I'll mute myself. I'll mute myself right now.
Okay. You're not. There we go. Okay. And so we all understand these things. I think Mary and anybody else would kind of agree with this. But what I really want to know is why they have gone to an echo chamber even more than before. When these things started first coming around with transgender in sports, Rationality Rules made a video and it blew up the atheist community big time. I mean, it really fractured it. It was the first of many kerfuffles with the atheist experience and other atheist groups that I was tangentially involved with. I do not support them, but I was tangentially involved with. And nowadays, they're not even willing to come in and just have a civil discussion. When I go through my X feed or Twitter feed, all I see is them wanting to basically bash on what they call TERFs, which stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminists, which I'm not a TERF because I'm not a feminist. No offense, Mary. You would probably be considered that. But I definitely understand why people want to be feminists nowadays, because they are trampling on women's rights. And so I'm really just wondering what it takes to find a transgender person who's willing to actually have the discussion. Because the court of public opinion seems to be turning on them now, which I've said for months now. But I think when Mary had mentioned something about defining things, like defining what a woman is, I really did like Matt Walsh's movie, What is a Woman? And these are descriptions. These are not prescribed definitions. These are just what describes a woman. Well, a woman is described as an adult human female, right? It's not prescribing. It's not saying that you must use these terms. It's not saying that every adult human female must be a woman, even though it generally seems to work out that way. But the word woman has multiple usages. But I think that when they're starting to say things like trans women are women, they jump the shark. I think that ever since they really wanted to convince people that transgender women were actual women, that's when real women, and Mary, I'm going to put you into this category and toss the ball back over to you, that real women stood up and said, wait a minute, no. And I think that was the problem.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I, as a male, I have an older sister and a younger sister. I have a mother, a grandmother, and I am absolutely certain of their femininity. There's nothing about them that was, I suppose, pretentious. They absolutely are female. What I see these days is cross-dressing people that we used to call transvestites. We used to call them transvestites. Now we have men putting on a dress and a wig and saying, I'm a woman, and you dare not tell me that I'm not a woman. How dare you? I'm disgusted by the entire assumption that being a woman, like my mum, like my sisters, like my grandmother, is as easy as putting on a dress or a wig. It
I agree
disgusts
with you.
me.
And here's the thing, and then like I said, I'll throw it back to Mary. But it's like, this is the kind of rhetoric that I get in my live chat sometimes, right? Here's a question that somebody wants me to ask, but I'm not going to ask this question because this question is, no offense, and I'm just going to call it like it is. It's freaking stupid, okay? It's a stupid question, and there are such things as a stupid question. But somebody had to ask, and again, there's a whole different audience going on YouTube, so I understand if you're not following me over there. But somebody had asked, how do you know your mother is female? You know what? And I want Mary to answer that question. I do. I want Mary to answer that question. Mary, how would you? You know what? I'm going to ask it because I think it's a stupid fucking question. How do you know your mother is female?
Yeah. Because only females give birth.
Da-da! Yeah, it's kind of a logical fact.
Thank you,
logical
Mary.
fact.
And that's not to say, all females give birth. It's only females give birth.
Correct. That's basic biology for the human species. The female of the species is the one that makes the large gamete. and that gives birth. We're not a sequential hermaphrodite. We're not seahorses. We're not clownfishes.
Right.
We are humans.
Or even if they don't produce the large gametes, it is the body organized around the production of large gametes.
Correct.
So they love to come at you with, oh, so you think that infertile women aren't women? No, the exceptions prove the rule, and barring injury or surgery or birth defect, you are organized around the production of one of two gametes. There's not a third gamete. There's not a third sex.
And I think that's disingenuous with it.
Thank you, Mary. I think my wife has never ever given birth, and her and I have decided in our lives we are not going to have children, and
but
that doesn't make any of us or either of us infertile or some kind of opposite sex. No, absolutely. Just because she is a woman that is not going to have children does not make her some kind of weird chemistry born.
Well, yeah, but these things are called accidentals. People know I do philosophy. I'm not very good at it. I mean, I'm okay at it. I like philosophy, right? And here's the thing, though. These are called accidental properties. In other words, that like humans are bipedal creatures, right? So they're chemohemotropic and they're bipedal. But if you're missing a leg or born without a leg, you're still a human, right? So it's not prescribed.
Right, exactly.
You're not prescribing that you must have two legs to be human. But in general, when we're talking about the population, humans are bipedal. Just like when we're talking about generalities for the population, it is the female of the species that gives birth only, period. Now, hey, Mary, I people are raising their hands, so I want to get a couple questions in this, because hopefully I can find somebody who's actually trans or supports this. Because, I mean, I don't want an echo chamber.
We have someone in there who's a furry. I know there's a lot of overlap in those communities, so you might have grabbed one.
I tell you what, pick their name. Go ahead, Mary. Pick.
You tell him. Why don't you come and tell us?
Oh, he's not a... No, he's...
No. I am Steve. Now I am.
That's hilarious.
Back when we first met, when I was the silenced one, I wasn't. Now I am.
My bad. Sorry.
Sorry, Mary. You picked a bad one.
You tell him Steve. He's my buddy, man. We do a lot of the streams together. Yeah, he's my buddy.
Yeah.
I co-host.
May I interject here?
Okay, so let me get the hands up real quick because people have been waiting. Doc, but you got to mute when you're not speaking, man, because you got such a lot of background noise, and I have gain on because of the YouTube channel, and it's just going to drive my audience nuts. So can you mute?
Tomato soup.
Doc. All right, I have to mute. It's just that static is driving me nuts. Mary, go ahead and pick some hands. I'm gonna let you kind of drive the ship here, since you're my special guest for a change.
Thank you. Yeah, tomato.
Tomato soup. You there, tomato? Oh, I gotta unmute. Okay, tomato. I'm sorry, tomato soup. You there, tomato? Go ahead. Tomato.
Yeah, just go ahead and unmute tomato soup.
You have to unmute tomato soup. You have your hand up. Well, we're waiting for tomato soup. Who else?
Sorry, you had to unmute me. I had kept saying muted by host. So I'm sorry if I have a lot of ambient noise. I live in a zoo.
That's awesome, actually. But you don't. Go ahead.
I think the interesting the thing that I find really interesting is that that people have become so at one point they're so obsessed with their own identity and yet so unsure of it. Like only someone who has no idea of who they are would ask, well, what makes you think that this person's a woman? You know what I mean? Like people who have some sense of self, some concrete sense of self, we don't question those very basic things. You know what I mean? I know it because, I have to go get pap smears to make sure that I don't get cervical cancer. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have to,
there's clearly,
I don't have to observe my navel all day wondering about my womanhood because it just is. It's a fundamental fact. And it doesn't, it's not my driving fact, but it's a fundamental fact of my biology. So to me, I really have to wonder, like, how weak is your sense of self that you think that asking people those questions is a gotcha. You know what I mean? Like,
well, it is a gotcha. Hang on a second, Jeremy. It's a disingenuous and dishonest form of argumentation. Because, like you said, we have gone thousands and thousands and 10,000s and 100,000s of years. Mankind has, civilization, probably 30,000 years. Humans have been around for, if you want to push it to a million, close to 2 million years or something. We've able to determine who's able to be inseminated and who's the one doing the insemination. This is not rocket science. I
wanted to add something about something you said earlier, which I found is really interesting, because I am not a prude at all whatsoever. But what I do find shocking is that, like, on Facebook, a woman breastfeeding could potentially be reported and be taken down for nudity, but literally pictures of men in crotchless panties with lipstick smeared across their face with their legs spread right, like that can be your profile picture on Facebook. And if you try,
panties.
Why do you think they get special privileges? Let me ask. That's a great thing, though. Why do you think that they get special privileges?
When you say these types, and if you try and report this for pornography, it comes back that it's like, this is not, this doesn't go against our community standards. But a woman breastfeeding would go against community standards, but out and out pornography doesn't. And even like where I live in Canada, and I live in a small town, and I'm actually considering running for a school representative, because I'm horrified by the fact that we have in this small town, these two people started this like trans gay child group, which it's just whatever. But like one of the leaders is a man who is just so obviously an autographile.
It's grooming.
His Facebook, which is open, is full of like hundreds of people from all over the world with very autogynephilic pictures.
Grooming children, isn't it?
But the thing is that it's like they say protect trans kids, and it's like if the leader
there's no such thing. There's no such thing.
No. I know. But that's not my point, though. But like, if there was a Boy Scout leader who had a bunch of pictures of pornographic women on his Facebook that was open, that the kids could search, he would not be the leader of the Boy Scouts very long. Yeah. But why does this guy get a pass because he has magical girl feels and wears ugly skirts?
Exactly. I'm on your side. I'm completely on your side.
And here's the thing. I really try to find people that are not on our side.
Across from the other side of the Atlantic, but I am completely on your side. I understand 100%. I see this happening everywhere. I see drag shows that are designed for children to talk to them about.
Well, I think this all boils down to the intense hatred of women, because let's be honest.
Yes.
Nobody is fighting for drag kings to read books to kids. Why?
Exactly.
That's a good point.
Women are ridiculous. Women are clowns. So men dressing up as clownish women, is funny. It's
exactly.
That's a good point.
Exactly, Mary Kate. Exactly.
Well, no, that was tomato.
These fetishes are becoming more and more normal, because society is saying, "Oh, you can't judge me on this. You can't judge me on that. You can't say this." These people, these pedophiles, if I'm going to be completely honest, these pedophiles are literally converting the world to, "Oh, you have to accept me. Accept me."
Nobody's fighting for trans men to be put in male prisons. Nobody's fighting for drag kings to read books to children. Nobody's fighting to get the first trans male player in the NHL. Nobody's fighting for that. Nobody's fighting for that.
Let's dive into that. Hang on a second.
You and I are, Mary Kate.
Hang on, guys.
We definitely are.
There's so much over talking, and you got to
So sorry.
It's okay, because I'm trying to get the people with the hands up, and I'm trying to get Mary Kate in here because she's my guest, and she hasn't been able to talk.
I will stop talking now, and I will mute my mic. Sorry.
It's okay. But I really think this is right up Mary Kate's alley right here, what Tomato said about trying to go marginalize and basically attack women. It really is an affront to women. And again, I'm not a feminist, and even I'm offended. So, Mary, I think this is perfect for you to respond to this.
Yeah, no, I 1000% agree with Tomato Soup that this fundamentally boils down to hatred of women. I don't know. I can't put it any more succinctly. I think that absolutely explains it. Sorry, I had a few bites of food while everybody was talking. But no, it's, because no one, and women pretending to be men are not fighting to get into male prisons because they know what they are, and they understand the vulnerability. And I don't think we're seeing, this push for drag kings to want to read to children because women are just less likely by a huge margin to be deviants than men are. And I really truly believe many of these men who are wearing their fetish in public, who are trying to do it in front of children, are just deviants.
And let me ask you, and by the way, I will get to the live chat. I see the questions in my live chat on the YouTube. I can only do 3 things at once, but you've asked the same question 5 times pro debates in my live chat on YouTube. I will get to it, I promise, okay? Not my first rodeo, okay? I've had 3,000 videos. I've done this before. Mary, so do you think
Kate, they absolutely are.
Hang on, I'm trying to bring back the conversation to a little higher level. Everybody can sit there and go, yes, these are pedophiles and deviants, and I think we all agree they do exist in those sectors. And I think that the AGP men have severe mental issues, and I think that they are the ones that are dragging down the entire LGBT plus community, and even the gays and the lesbians don't want anything to do with them. But do you think, Mary, that this is some kind of internalized hatred that when you have these, and I will call them AGP, to separate from the very 1% that is actually, I consider to be trans, and they're more like transsexuals, like Buck Angel, who I've had this conversation with, and that, I know he is a transsexual. I'm going to refer to him as a he. He's done all the work to pass. And I think that, converting from a female to male and living as a man, going into man spaces, is not a big deal. This is why I think Tomato's question, why don't we see this with men, is because men don't really care as much, right? And they're not the ones that are going to be more harmed. Women are...
No. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to cut you off because I know there's a lot of we're speaking, but it's not that men don't care. It's that men know that women aren't a threat regardless of how they look.
Fair enough.
But no insult to you, but really it's because they know that women, they're not scared of women. We're scared of men for a reason. Whether that man is wearing a skirt or not.
I think that's absolutely fair. I think you're absolutely right on that. And so, the women need to be protected a little more, right? They are going to be the weaker of the species, right? So if a woman wants to play in the NFL, they can, right? The NFL allows for women on the field to play, but nobody ever has because nobody's reached that level. And then they do decide to, they take it upon themselves, knowing full well what they're getting themselves into for injury. I respect that. That's more than if a woman wants to play on an NFL team, that's equality, right? That doesn't mean that a man should be able to play on a female's team. But I want to ask Mary, though, do you think it's some kind of internalized hatred? Because again, people like Buck Angel know they're biologically a female. They just want to live their life as a man. People like Blair White knows, she is a biological male. They're aware of these things. They're not trying to convince anybody that they've actually trained sex. Yeah, but Blair White recognizes this. Blair White will tell people this. They're not trying to say that, I was a man.
Blair White still wears woman as a costume and makes a mockery of female biology. And, it's a LARP. It's just a costume, and it's offensive to women.
But let me ask
you, he doesn't respect women enough to see us as anything other than a costume.
But let me ask you, do you think that a person has...
Blair White is a very, very pretty man.
Hang on.
Wait a second, Jamie. I want to hear Steve's question.
Yeah, I got to mute everybody. Jamie, I cannot have people just chiming in right at this point because I'm trying to have a conversation and everybody's just kind of interrupting, and that's not how we do Twitter Spaces. So with respect, can we not do that? I will call on people going forward because people have already complained in my live chat on YouTube. And when it comes to Twitter Spaces of this nature, when I have a guest, it's going to run a little bit different than like my other ones when I'm just hanging out with you tell them Dave. So I will call on people, I promise. So I'm going to unmute. And this is a conversation I really want to have Mary, because this is where Mary and I a little depart. And as much as I adore her and I love her stuff, I do have a little bit different opinion on this. And so I want to get Mary's opinion on it. If somebody does want to live their life differently, like a transvestite, because transvestites have been around forever, right? drag has been around forever, but they're not the ones saying we are actually biological women. They at least want to wear women's clothing and live their life that way. Personally, I don't care, right? I really don't care. They're recognizing that they're not a biological woman, right?
Why is it okay for them to live their fetish in public just because they publicly acknowledge that that's what they're doing?
I think because it's a freedom of America. It is a freedom that people have the right to wear whatever they want to wear, act how they want to act, and it's just a fundamental freedom. And I don't think that should be what we're trying to like go against. What I think, as far as my channel and my Twitter feed, is mostly about the 99% that you're referring to, where somebody puts on a wig, they're clearly a male, and then they're going, "Oh, well, you have to address me as she, or I'm going to ruin your life." Fuck those people. Those are the people that are dangerous.
So is blackface okay? Like, I really am genuinely asking, is it okay to wear blackface if you acknowledge that you're wearing blackface?
It depends on the circumstances. There are comedians that have done certain things that we consider to be taboo.
I'm not talking about comedians. I'm talking about living your life in blackface and going, "Oh, it's okay. I know I'm white."
I think it's a societal thing. Personally, for me, I don't care if a black person wears whiteface, or vice versa. But to somebody who's black, I can see how it can be offensive. Of course, obviously, and I think that everybody has a right to be offensive and be offended.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Women feel the same way about men and women face,
and I respect that. Right. And here's the thing: I think people have a right to be offended, and people have a right to be offensive. I'm not the police of what's considered to be offensive or not. And so I get that. I totally get that.
I'm not saying to make it illegal, but I'm saying they're bad. They're terrible people. It's misogyny,
And that's what.
And it's gross. I think it's really gross to wear your fetish in public. I think that's nasty, and I think it's, it honestly does infringe upon the rights of everyone around them
if
to not participate in their fetish.
If it's sexualized, right?
Right, and you agreed with me that just around 99% of them, it is a fetish.
Right.
And you talk about how transvestites have always existed. Yes, and we've always known that, for example, serial killers have a much higher likelihood, of them having a history of transvestism. I mean, it is absolutely a sign of deviancy, especially violent sexual deviancy.
No, I think you're absolutely right on that. But like I'm saying, I would like to make room for that 1% who just want to live their lives. And you probably couldn't even tell that what their actual gender is. How do you know
that they're telling the truth?
Personally, I don't really care unless I'm dating them. Honestly, I don't even care if they're telling the truth or not.
But women care. Women absolutely care.
I mean,
because we can't tell the difference between someone who genuinely believes his delusion and someone who is a violent threat to women. And we've agreed 99% of them are doing it for a sexual fetish. They're coming into women's spaces. They film themselves jerking off. I mean,
I'm against that. You know that I'm against that, right?
Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that.
You know that I'm against any man being in women's spaces, whether they pass or not is irrelevant. I'm not against biological women being in men's bathrooms and men's spaces because, again, as was pointed out earlier, men don't feel threatened by that. As a man, I don't care if somebody's trans who's a biological woman or male uses the men's restroom. I don't care. Back in my day, my mom or my sister had to go pee. They went to go pee in the male's restroom because the lines were so long in the female restroom, right?
You should care, though, because these people are literally absorbing women's spaces.
No, I'm talking about men. I'm talking about women who have transitioned to men. Like, for example, if Buck Angel uses the male's restroom, I think he should. I think it would not make sense for Buck Angel to use the female restroom.
Well, sorry, I think that, if you have voluntarily... No. This is a woman who pretends to be a man. I don't think that passing has anything to do with anything. I think that if you go out of your way to make yourself look like a man, then you absolutely are going to make other women uncomfortable. And you mentioned Buck Angel as being someone who just wants to quote unquote live her life, but Buck Angel is heavily involved in the pornography industry. Buck Angel has ties to, all these BDSM clubs and the Pritzker brothers. Like, her motivations are absolutely not about just living her life. It is, sexualized promotion of transgenderism, but it's still with her female body. You know what I mean? It is still...
Could you say, hang on, could you say the same about gay and lesbians?
No, because gay and lesbian
Can I say
people,
what about gay and lesbian?
Well, a lot, like I said...
Gay and lesbian people are
Jamie,
gay or lesbian.
Jamie, you can't just interrupt in the middle of a sentence, okay? I'm trying to talk
I apologize.
I know you're excited, and I love you having here. But let me ask Mary, because again,
I deeply apologize. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to, and I'll get to my live channel and in the YouTube channel. I'll ask these questions in a second. But if like Buck Angel, if you never knew that they were a woman, you probably wouldn't think that they were male. Do you think that Buck Angel should use the male or female restroom? And I'll ask the question for my live chat.
Absolutely. He knows he's a man. He needs to use the men's restroom. All men need to use the men's restroom.
Well, Buck Angel's biological female, right? So
that's up to her then, because like we have all agreed, women in men's spaces are a nuisance, not a threat. Men
I love
in
that.
Women's spaces are a threat, and they need to stay out, because that is a normal thing that all of human culture agrees upon up until 10 years ago.
That's a really good way to put it, actually. One's way, females in men's spaces may be a nuisance and maybe uncomfortable sometimes, but nothing of threatening nature. But men in women's spaces is always going to be considered to probably be threatening. That's how you would put it, Mary?
Right.
Okay,
yes,
I like that.
1,000%.
And here's something. As somebody who's ex-military, I worked. We had to be with women sometimes. We weren't as much as integrated as they are now. But back then, as we only cared if a woman could do their job. That was it. Nobody gave a shit whether you're male, female, gay, straight, whatever. No one cared. It was not a thing. Nobody cared. Nobody asked questions. It was during don't ask, don't tell during the Clinton administration. And so it was really just do your damn job. But there was one thing that was interesting, Mary, and then I'll ask you this question that somebody wants me to ask. Whenever there was a man on deck in the women's berthing, they had to yell out, "Man on deck," right? And of course, they had female on deck as well. But when we heard female on deck, nobody really cared, right? But I'm telling you, when they're in female berthings, when you hear male on deck or man on deck, they notice. There's a very different reaction from the female cadets and the female in the military than the males. Does that make sense?
Yes. So you get what I'm saying then.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I've seen it in real action. So somebody wants to ask you, and then I'll get to the hands. So they ask, and I don't understand this, but how do you know someone produces large gametes when you meet them? Which I think is a silly question because it's irrelevant.
Humans have evolved from the dawn of human evolution to be able to tell the difference between male and female. Statistically, women are much better at this identification than men are, but even then, the margin of error is so small.
Right.
It's so small. Babies know the difference. Dogs know the difference. This is just something that we inherently can infer when we look at someone.
And let me ask you, Mary, and then I'll let you pick another hand. Why do people want to always take the outliers, right? People bring in the outlier of that 0.01% that you may not be able to readily identify, right? And they try to make that the norm. And I never understood that, right? And they start bringing in things like DSD, and developmental sexual development issues and intersex, which has nothing to do with the trans issue whatsoever, right?
No, it doesn't. And every DSD is sex specific.
Yes.
They are still male or female. The only reason we know about them is because humans only come in two flavors, male and female. So we notice when something developmentally goes wrong.
You're absolutely right on that. Every one of them is considered be one or the other, right? Turner syndrome it only happens to females. XSY Klinefelter only happens in males. Every single developmental order is one or the other. There is none that affects both that I'm aware of.
Right? No, there's no true hermaphrodism in humans.
Correct. So go ahead and pick another hand, because again, we're on your time schedule here. But I just started early for you, so you can stay up late, a little later.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. So pick a hand.
I actually can't see the hands on my end. I'm not sure why, or maybe no one has it up. But if you want to tell me who's got their hand up, if you can see it.
I'm probably wrong on this because again, I'm on PC. But I think Rock has their hand up. Rock SO.
Hello.
Welcome back, my friend.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. Doc, you're hang on. Okay, I gotta mute everybody. Doc, you gotta your mic, and I'm gonna have to take you down here because you're just mic so bad. Unrock, can you unmute again and then try again here? I appreciate it.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, way better. Go for it.
Sorry. I had my headset on. You just remove it. Okay, so I am not on the fully crazy all trans female are females field. I think that's completely illogical. However, I am trans positive. So I do believe that you should treat trans women as women.
How do you treat women as women? What does that mean?
Yes. So there is certain roles within society, which is the gender roles. And
So stereotypes.
It's not stereotypes.
Okay. Give me an example of one of these roles that only apply to women, please.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that all roles apply to women. You're saying that...
I'm asking you to give me... You said there are roles in society, so I'm asking you to give me an example of a role that if someone was in that role, you would say they are a woman because of that. I would treat them as a woman because they do this role. What roles do you mean?
Well, generally, women are more caring. Women tend to be more... Oh, I forgot all the list of...
So those are just characteristics of personalities. And my point of view, women's point of view, is that a woman is not a certain personality in any body. It's any personality in a female body. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Roles are stereotypes, right? They change depending on the culture, depending on the time in history, but male and female don't change.
Yeah, but trans women and trans men, what they're trying to do is to adjust to a specific gender role. Usually, as you said...
Okay, tell me, what is a woman gender role? Because you keep saying that. I'd really like to know what you think that is.
Gender roles, women... so the way that the humans act...
No, not female. Because you're saying that some women are male, right? You're saying there are male women, there are trans women. And then you say that they are women because of their gender role. I want you to tell me, not female, what is a woman gender role? What does that mean?
Yeah, so there are certain... I'm trying to...
I have a nurse in the live chat that can help you, Rock. Slam RN is a friend of mine who's a nurse. And she says breastfeeding is a role. What do you think about that, Mary?
No, only women develop breast milk. There are men who you can take drugs to induce lactogonorrhea, whatever it's called. I think it's lactogonorrhea, but it's, discharge from men. It's hormone induced. It's, outside drugs induced from men, but women have evolved to breastfeed. Right. We have milk ducts.
I think though what RN Slam, and I don't want to speak for Slam RN, but I think what she's saying is that generally she said she's basically saying the breastfeeding is a role that only women can do, right? For that very reason. It's a role, but it's a role that no man can ever do. Somebody in my live chat said men can breastfeed. No, they can't. They can never breastfeed.
No, they can't.
It doesn't work that way. And I think that
I would say that's an attribute of being female, not a role, not a gender role. That still is having to do with being the female sex. And I'm trying to understand where Rock is coming from when he says that woman is actually not about sex, it's about gender roles.
Go ahead, Rock.
So the idea that I'm trying to is gender role is not the exact definition that I want to use. is more of the philosophical idea of women, right? So you have characteristics, physical characteristics that identify a woman. Usually, women have long hair. Usually, women have
No, those
larger hips.
are choices. Having long hair is a choice. Women can cut their hair. That doesn't turn them into men. Can grow their hair, and for many cultures in many different points in history, that is their norm, is for men to grow their hair long. So these are,
Yes.
again, just stereotypes that you're assigning to the sexes.
They're called traits.
You're not describing.
They're called traits. They're just traits. That's all they are.
They are traits, exactly. And they are social traits that are region dependent. They are society dependent. And they are those people that decide to go against these common traits. The same way you said it. Not all women can have kids, but all women should have the capability or the develop large gametes, all that stuff, but not all women do.
Well, let me ask. Here, I think the question should be this to Mary. Do you think there are such thing as gender norms at all?
Of course, there are things as such a thing as gender norms. Of course, there are. But I don't think that, if you're a man and let's say you break the gender norm by wearing pink, I don't think that makes you a woman.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, and I think that's the biggest problem, right? Yeah, because they look at the traits, right? And they confuse gender traits, which, let's say the gender traits are on a bimodal distribution. And a bimodal distribution, you got two nodes. You have one node on the right, you have one node on the left, and everything is in between them, right? And that one node happens to be male, and that other node happens to be female, and then you have traits that are just all over the place. And so they're trying to say that because of that, there are no such strict dichotomies of male and female. And I think that is a huge equivocation fallacy, because they're equivocating these traits that can be cultural and historical and just personal and societal with actual biological, fundamental, ontological facts that there's only two sexes, period. Bar none. That's it. There's two sexes, bar none. And in societal,
right,
if they want to go to sociology and start, talking about, gender roles and all this other stuff, that's fine. I have no issue with that. But I have never really seen anything not based upon the fact that there's two genders in society. We just don't have a third gender. Or neutral gender. We just have, maybe restrooms for people that really don't want to use either. Okay, which is fine.
Yeah, you can use the disabled restroom if you feel like you have so much anxiety that you can't use the restroom appropriate to your sex. I would absolutely consider that a mental handicap and go ahead, use the disabled restroom.
Okay. I don't have a problem with that. Rock, to you, and then we'll get another hand here.
So, the way I don't think that people that identify as non-binary do it because they have a mental illness. It's more about a societal statement saying that they do not identify with either role. The same way you were saying, not all females need to use the female bathroom.
But why does it matter what they identify with, right? I mean, shouldn't it matter what your biology is, as far as if you are a male, biological wise, you use the male restroom. And again, if you're female, then you could use either. I think we've all agreed that it's the women's spaces that need the protection, not the men's spaces.
If you're a woman and you want to get a bad haircut and you want to, get a bunch of piercings and dye your hair, that doesn't make you non-binary. It just makes those are your personality choices. You don't need to be another gender. You can just be a woman that looks like that.
Do you have any issue?
And everything in your life is still going to apply based on your sex, because nobody believes in your weird genders.
Let me ask you, and I'll have another hand. Are you okay? Like, for example, like I have trans friends, and then I use the pronoun that they want, only because I respect them as a person and I like them. But for some who I don't. But hang on, let me finish the question. For people that I don't care, right? But that's just me, individual, right? They're not forcing me to use their particular pronoun. I just happen to get along with them. Like I've had Jessica Gill on many times. I like a lot of things that she talks about. I will refer to her as a she, and I know you might be offended by that, but somebody like.
But he matters more.
Well, I mean, it's just, to me, you know, we all have our framework. We all have our positions for what we're coming from. You know, you can use he, and I can use she. Jessica doesn't matter to me. She doesn't really care one way or another. But you know, do you care that I happen to, like, because I'm friends with this person, use their particular pronoun only because I actually have a relationship with that person as a friendship level?
I think it's very odd to willingly participate in someone's fetish, but I think, you know, if you're okay with saying things that, you know, they're going to then go say, oh, you know, I get this boner every time someone calls me she, her.
Well,
if you want to participate in that, more power to you. But, you know, again, it is very offensive to women because it speaks to your belief that, you know, respecting men who disrespect women is more important to you than respecting women.
Well, like I said, let me ask you, if the person, again, if it's, I really do think it's based upon personal, individual friendship levels with people. Like, for example, so you'll never use the opposite pronoun regardless, no matter whoever you meet.
I will never do it. I'm not doing it. I you know, I don't think that we should pretend that anorexics are fat, and I don't think we should pretend that we hear the voices of schizophrenics, you know, and I don't want to participate in anyone's fetish or delusion. I don't think it's kind, and I think it's disrespectful to women, which I'm sure many women have told you, which I'm sure is why you're asking me this.
Oh, of course. Well, here's the thing. I get all kinds of, you know, there's no one size fits all. Some women agree with you and some don't. I mean, that's just the reality, right? I see Gwen has his hand up. Gwen, do you want to talk? Because I know Gwen is a member of that community. And he is a he, and he's really intelligent on this particular topic. So I'd like to get Gwen's point of view with you, Mary, because I'm not quite sure where Min stands on this, except I think that he pretty much agrees with me on 99% of things. But Gwen, you wanna ask your question?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, bud.
Hello, Steve. Hi, Mary. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah. So I think I think in this kind of conversation we tend to focus a lot on, you know, what you call trans people, or like the people who have the fetish, and I do not disagree with that, because a majority of people who transition are the organophilic type, and the other one is homosexual, transsexual. I'm pretty sure you know that too. So the later, they typically very like me, like, you know, when they grew up, they are very atypical male or female, but then unlike me, I defeminize at my puberty and I become just a regular homosexual man. But for these people, for some reason, they do not defeminize, so they carry on, and then they wish to live as a feminine self, to the point that they have to transition. So I think for these people, you don't have to accommodate them, but I think probably just give them a little bit sympathy.
So here's my position.
That makes sense to me. Yeah.
I don't believe that there's any condition that men can have where the only treatment is for them to make a mockery of women. I think that's stupid. I really do. And I cannot wrap my head around the fact that people say, oh, well, there's genuinely these men who they really need to mock women. Like, I can't understand how anyone's falling for that. And I agree with you that there are a percentage of trans-identified men who are, you know, repressed homosexuals, or, you know, self-loathing homosexuals. But I don't really care what their motivation is, because the end result is they still treat women like a costume.
And I think that's a good point, that they, you know, a lot of these kids probably would have grown up to being gay if they were not convinced that they were trans.
Yeah, that's a huge problem, right?
Huge problem. Absolutely huge problem.
It's super homophobic. Yeah.
In a way, it kind of is. You know, they always talk about trans genocide, but there seems to be a gay genocide of some sorts, because I truly believe that most kids are going to grow out of this phase. They really are. And the very few that don't, they're going to need a lot of psychological help. I don't believe in medical intervention for any child at all, ever, when it comes to trans ideology. I think it's 99.9% it's pushed upon the kid by the parents, by the teachers, by peers, by friends. There's no way anybody's going to convince me. Even as a centrist who is a, somebody who likes epistemology and says, look, change my mind. I find it very difficult to believe that I could ever change my mind that a 2-year-old will tell you that they're trans. I'm sorry. I don't see any way in any possible world it's impossible. But they believe this in trans ideology.
Yeah, and if you talk to the people who are, under category homosexual, transsexual, they do not use. They admit they have some kind of mental problem that they cannot reconcile their body, and they don't find it sexy to be women. They just feel like they have to change themselves to live, to be at peace with themselves. So I don't have a solution for this, but I feel like if there is some wiggle room for them, then that should be.
I think there's solutions, Gwen, and I'm going to get the next hand here in a second. And this is again where I depart a little bit from Mary. I think that in all things there's a compromise, right? This is why I have a moderate centrist channel and Twitter thing, because I do think there's a middle ground. I think that when you have 100% polarizing opinion where you just don't allow for any exceptions, it tends to not to get anything accomplished. However, let me hang on. But I love what I do love what you're accomplishing so far, Mary. I really do, because your voice is fast becoming a voice of the dialogue when it comes to transgender stuff. But again, I'm a moderate, so I'm I'm not going to agree with anybody 100%, right? Very rarely do I agree with somebody 100%. But with 99%, I'm going to lean toward your position. I don't think you're pushing for anybody to really agree with you 100% across the board. Are you, or do you think that's what your goal is? I'm just curious.
So, my goal is to have women defined as female in law. And then I have a lot of goals after that. But I think that is step one. And yes. I say this ad nauseum, but you cannot defend legally what you cannot define legally.
No, I absolutely agree with you.
And there are so many destructive tentacles of gender ideology and so many different aspects of life. I don't see any reason whatsoever to support it.
No, that's a good point. I do think legally. I don't see any. I do see some hands up. Womi?
My hand's been up a long time.
Sorry, I'm looking at my. Okay, so it's funny because I'm sorry. It's just I'm on PC, so it's a little difficult. Who just said who was the first person that said they had their hand up?
I think I was.
Yeah, I think so too. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to speak against your centrist position.
Okay, I love that.
Because either women are fully embodied female human beings, or we are not. There is no compromise in this position. There can be no compromise. Either women are recognized as full human beings, or we're not. And your position is that we're not.
No, not all. Because again, Mary was talking about
some men are in some way women.
No,
you're saying that women are not full human beings.
No, I've never said that ever, never. So let me clarify my position here. My position is that a male can never become a female, biologically speaking, ever. It doesn't happen. I do believe that there's people out there that want to live their lives of the opposite sex. My position is, as an American, I just believe.
Hold on. How can a man live his life as the opposite sex? He's always going to be a man. Any way he lives is going to be the way a man lives.
But among his peers, right? When you're in a social setting and you're among your peers, people can treat each other.
He wants to people about his mutable sex.
But people can treat each other how they want in their own social circles, correct? Now legally, but let me finish.
You can play pretend with whoever you want.
Exactly. Yeah,
sure,
exactly.
You can play pretend,
but we don't have to.
But legally, I'm on your side with that, right? Legally, I'm not for any of these additional rights. I think trans people has the same rights as anybody else. They want to own a firearm.
What is a trans person?
Somebody who has gender dysphoria.
But we don't know what gender dysphoria is. It's a brand new garbage can diagnosis that has no basis in actual medical.
So you don't. So let me get your opinion or your view here. You don't think there's a single solitary male that actually has that belief that they're female? Is that correct?
A belief is a belief.
Well, I understand that, but that's
a belief.
But they believe it.
Hold on, please let me finish. A belief is a thought. We are not our thoughts. I mean, a thought is something you can change. A delusional thought is a delusional thought.
It's an incorrect belief.
And what we do with that is we go to a psychologist and we talk through and figure out where the reality is. A psychologist's job is to help people get to reality and connect with, certainly with their body, with the outside world, connect on a level that deals with actual reality. A psychologist's job is not to support delusion.
And again, I agree with you on this. It is a false belief, and false beliefs is a delusion. A delusion is defined as a incongruence between perception and reality. And again, a belief is more than just a feeling, by the way. I do a blog on epistemology. So when I talk about belief, I talk about beliefs being propositional, meaning that they basically assert the semantic content of some proposition rather than just a feeling. So I have a very different uses of the term belief, and I just want to make that very clear. But I agree with you legally across the board. I'm on your side with that. But my question, though, is do you think that there are people that honestly do have these beliefs, whether they're false or not? Do they have these illusions?
But again, anybody can have any belief. What difference does it make if they have a false belief?
But do they?
Why should I treat them any differently than any? Okay.
Yes, of course there are people who have delusions.
Yes.
Yeah, of course there are.
That's right. Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
But that has no bearing on reality.
Exactly. The reality is that humans are an immutably sexed species, and we cannot change sex. Nobody can transcend sex.
Correct.
Nobody can transcend sex.
But my because you're talking about me being a centrist. People all over the place have weird views, right? I know people that believe in astrology. I don't believe in astrology, right? I believe astrology is bunk. People that believe, I'm not religious, right? I'm not. But I allow for Christianity, right? I'm fine with it. I'm not an anti-theist. I tend to be a little more against religion lately than I ever have before, but I'm not a religious person, right? I believe that the Christian God doesn't exist personally. And so, as an American, though, I allow people, just fine. That if people want to express their religiosity, by all means, right? And I kind of put it in that category. I don't think I think it just has to do with people's freedoms to live their life the way they want, but again, the society, the other people that are out there, outside of their sphere of influence, outside their social circles, have no obligation, no duty, no onus to treat them based upon that delusional belief, as you put it. That's kind of my centrist view.
Okay, but so, the delusional,
Steve,
this particular delusional
real quick.
belief.
Real quick, Steve, since you brought up gender dysphoria being a legitimate thing, is it okay if I read to you from the DSM the symptoms of gender dysphoria, and then I want you to tell me, DSM-5, but I want you to tell me, I'll read them to you, and then I want you to tell me if this sounds like it's an illness or just personality characteristics.
Oh, I can tell you right now it's an illness, but go ahead.
No, listen. In boys, a strong preference for cross-dressing or simulating female attire. In girls, a strong preference for wearing only typical masculine clothing and a strong resistance to wearing typical feminine clothing. Okay, that's me when I was a kid. A strong preference for cross-gender roles in make-believe play or fantasy play. That was me as a kid. A strong preference for the toys, games, activities stereotypically used or engaged in by the other gender. That was me as a kid. A strong preference for playmates of the other gender. Absolutely. In boys, a strong rejection of typically masculine toys, games, and activities, and a strong avoidance of rough and tumble play. Like these are just normal personality characteristics of many, many people.
I agree with
There's nothing wrong with these children. There's nothing wrong with these people. And it doesn't make them... Yeah, it's wild to me that we are surgically hormonally altering people for their personalities, not closely aligning with what we think, are the stereotypes of every sex. And it's really contraindicative it blows my mind that these are the same people saying that they want to expand gender and defy gender roles, but they're the ones pigeonholing everyone into these only masculine or only feminine Barbie and Ken types of roles.
I think the counter that would be that the DSM-5, I don't do anything in the psychology type stuff, right? So I'm snowballing. Okay, it's spitballing, excuse me. So don't believe anything I say from this moment forward in the next minute or so. But from what I understand, DSM-5 isn't regulatory. It isn't prescriptive. It is description. It is descriptivism rather than prescriptivism. So it generally describes what would be fine for somebody who would have just gender dysphoria, rather than if you meet all these criteria, you automatically have gender dysphoria. I could be wrong on that. They could be using it prescriptively, in which case I would argue against that. This is why I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done in that area, because I think the trans ideology has been just bastardized. I mean, there's so many different weird studies that are out there. I mean, you mentioned a good one today. I think it was yesterday, Mary, or today. And it brought back just what was the name of that study did with a guy that took gay children, or excuse me, adoptive children, and he put them with gay pedophiles for a study. What was that?
Oh yeah, Kentler, the Kentler experiment.
Yes, exactly.
In Germany.
Yeah, exactly. There's been a whole, I mean, the whole trans ideology comes from these weird experiments with like John Mooney and other things. And so I don't think psychologists really understand what's really going on. And that's one of the reasons I've actually argued ostensibly against medical intervention, because with medical intervention, there's no going back, right? These are irreversible processes for the most part. And I have argued that children and even adults primarily should get psychological counseling and help with these things. But I've asked people this question, and this is what I find to be a little bit strange. And I would say, look, if you have what you call gender dysphoria, and you believe that you're the opposite sex, born male, but you live as a female, if you could take a pill and have a congruency between your mind and body such that you live your life as a male, would you do it? And most of them said no. They rather have the discomfort, because they're placing their identity as they want to live their lives greater than that discomfort. I don't know what to make of that.
You're still supporting the Cartesian dualism.
No, I'm not. I'm not a Cartesian dualist. I'm not. I'm a property dualist.
You are, because you're talking about a congruency between their mind and body.
Well, but I'm not genderizing their mind. I'm just saying their psychological stance, right? Their belief, even though their belief is incorrect. Yeah. I'm not saying, again, I'm not for a gendered mind, right? I'm not for dualism in that aspect.
But you believe in gender dysphoria.
Well, I believe that such a thing exists in the realm of the literature. What it actually entails, I have no freaking idea, because again, I don't understand the psychology as somebody else would, right? So that's not my area.
I thought you were trying to argue with
I think I understand their psychology really well after a few years of diving into what they say in their spaces when they think no one else is listening.
Yep.
And the things that they say when they know other people are listening. I mean, and they talk about, I never believed in the being born in the wrong body. I told the therapist this, that, and the other. Like they have a prescriptive story that they tell in order to get what they want.
Right.
Correct.
I don't believe people
I guess my
body.
question for you is, why would you treat a man with gender dysphoria differently than you would treat, let's say a man with schizophrenia who really believes that Jesus is talking to him or something?
You know what? Because
like
because again, I don't want to exacerbate the condition. I mean, I know people that are Jesus freaks, right? I don't go up to Christians and say, "Hey, you're a Christian. You're wrong." I don't start that kind of argument like that, right? If they want to have a discussion.
No, that's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking is if you have a friend who makes decisions based on the fact that he believes that, let's not even use religion as an example. He believes that Elmo is speaking to him through the television. Would you affirm that belief?
No, I wouldn't.
So my proposition to you, and I like you, but my proposition to you is, and I genuinely do, but I guess I'm just hoping that you'll kind of see my point of view here, is that I do think that by calling some men women, you are choosing to play along probably with the fetishes of these men more than you value how disrespectful it is to women.
All right, and that's a fair point. I'm gonna take that under advisement and consideration. And I think you follow me long enough to know that I do take on board things, right?
I do, and I guess that's why I feel comfortable saying that to you, because I do respect you, and I think you listen, and I really appreciate that.
Could I give a rebuttal that, again, well, this is what the struggle sessions are about. That's why I call them struggle sessions. I'm the one struggling in these struggle sessions, right? I want people to challenge my views, right? These are not for other people. No offense to everybody listening. This is not for anybody else. These struggle sessions that I've started, and you tell them Dave and some other people, Rock, have come in. These are for me. Challenge me. I like to be challenged, because people always say Steve has an echo chamber. I'm like, fuck you. How do I have an echo chamber? Are you crazy?
Right.
I have like the opposite of that. But again, I think the rebuttal would be, like I said, for friends that I kind of respect, I think it's if I don't use their particular pronoun, I'm not there to piss them off, right? As long as they're not promoting the fact that they actually are female. I'm willing to have a little compromise, and I think that's really kind of it. But when it comes to people like for example, Sophie Marley, right? I've been talking to your favorite person, pissed off lawyer. I know you love pissed off lawyer.
Oh,
right?
I do. I have such a soft spot for her, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna, we signed a peace treaty, but I follow her, and I read everything she says, and I'm kind of waiting for the day when, maybe something will help her see the light. But sorry, continue.
I doubt it. She's way too far gone the rabbit hole.
Yeah, you're probably right.
But like Sophie Molly, there was these, and you call them troons, right? Troons.
Sometimes, sure.
Yeah, they were literally just saying that somebody that reposted one of the photos that Sophie Molly put on the internet, right? Kind of an exhibitionist, sexualized photo that really wasn't revealing much, but it was definitely.
Is this the one with the mismatched nipple clamps?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and so somebody was, more than one person was seriously defending, saying it was revenge porn and all this absolute bullshit, because. And they even said, well, I don't really even know much about this person, Sophie Molly. I'm like, look, I've been following Sophie for quite a while. This was intentional. This was not, and even if it wasn't intentional, it's still not revenge porn, because nobody's ever dated Sophie Molly. But Molly doesn't, nobody would either. But Sophie Molly does this on purpose. I absolutely am convinced that Sophie Molly does this kind of shitty stuff in order to get Flying Monkeys to defend him, because he wants the attention. And so I have no respect for somebody like that. Absolutely none.
Right. No, he has a humiliation fetish and, a cross-dressing fetish, and probably a lot of other fetishes, as we've seen.
Yeah. So to me, again, being the centrist, I just have a little bit of a distinction between somebody like that as opposed to somebody who really doesn't have those fetishes, right? And maybe you're right. Maybe they all do.
How do you know?
I don't. But I don't know anybody. But I don't know who has a fetish and who don't. Everybody has their proclivities, I guess.
Exactly.
And
then we look at this group. And how all of the fetishistic, pornified things that they say are their most popular subjects, that they talk about it constantly. I don't know why anyone believes them. It's wild to me.
Would you be amenable? And then I'm gonna get the next hand for. Again, I'm not at all for, obviously, for men's and women's spaces, right? And do you? Are you amenable to me differentiating between somebody like Sophie Molly and maybe somebody that, like Jessica Gill or something like that? Or do you just kind of lump them all into the exact same category with no gradient?
I'm not saying that there aren't men who pretend to be women who aren't kind. But what I am saying is they are all mocking women for whatever reason, and I don't find it appropriate. I don't believe them that it isn't a fetish in some way, shape, or form, and I don't think that any woman should be expected to differentiate between the motivations of these men.
And this is what I would love to actually have somebody who's actually, trans come into those types of discussions and debate that with you or discuss it with you or anybody on your side of that fence, because I don't see that happening. And we're, talking about the court of public opinion. I don't see it happening, and I don't understand why. They used to, but then all of a sudden they started blocking anybody that disagreed with them and alienating people and trying to cancel people and calling people transphobe and bigots. And they just shut down all communication. That bugged the shit out of me, because They're literally saying we don't even want to put our views out there. People can hate me, like me, respect me, whatever. But I'd be damned if nobody can say that I don't put my views out there for criticism.
Right. No, and I fully agree with that. I enjoy being in these spaces where we talk about this, and it took meeting a lot of other people who knew more than I did, to talk to me about these things. Like, I'm still learning all the time, but I don't think this group is willing to listen. I don't think they have an argument to back up their religion, and I think it really is very much like a religion. It's a lot like Scientology, where anyone who speaks out against it is a blasphemer and they're excommunicated. And if you leave the religion, you're like, look at the way they treat detransitioners.
Oh, it's definitely fair use. Look, I say even the most mild thing, and I will get, people coming to my live chats and feeds and just tear me up over it, right? And I'm like, this is not. So I don't even say stuff that is actually I know to be factual, and I get crap over it. Not opinion based, but factual. And it's like, well, holy crap. And I do like blogs on logic, and it's like, I have people arguing about logic when logic is objective, and I'm like, wait a minute, no, this is not up for opinion here, okay?
Right.
Tomato soup, I think you still have your hand up.
Because it's a belief.
Tomato.
Hey, this is my dog's mom. I've had that since the beginning.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes, absolutely. My dog's mom.
By the way, Mary Kate, huge fan. Look for all of your Twitter posts, and I've watched the X-Files one so many times I need an intervention at this point. It's the best. You're better than most comedians.
I can't hear anything. Maybe I need to
stroke her ego. She loves that. She absolutely.
I
got her to join.
Anything, so I'm gonna. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna come right back because I can't hear anything.
Yeah.
I can't believe she didn't hear that wonderful compliment.
You know what? She'll hear it when she comes back, and she has to probably reload. I literally had to butter her up to get in. I guilt tripped her. I'm not even gonna front. I was like, look, because I've supported Mary for a very long time, and we've tried to get her in before she even blew up in one of our shows with me and Jessica Gill. But she was always so busy, so I kind of guilt tripped her. Like, there we go.
She's quite amazingly funny and wonderful dry wit. Is she back on?
Yeah, so go ahead and stroke her ego again because she loves that.
Well, Mary Kate, I was saying that I've watched your X-Files parody so many times I need an intervention.
Oh, no.
It is the funniest thing. You are better than most comedians. It was fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
See,
and Steve, you didn't have to butter me up. I just left my full-time job recently, in the last week and a half. So I literally finally have the time.
You weren't supposed to hear that, Mary. You know what? I think the funniest was where's my dick, Sandra?
Right.
I'm sorry. That has got to be the best. Where's my dick, Sandra? Because I can see that happening. I literally can see that freaking happening. And you know who you reminded me of? You know why I first took a like to you, Mary, and your stuff? You reminded me of Blair Eskine before she got famous too.
Who is it?
Blair Eskine.
Oh, okay. I'll have to look her up.
She's
I don't
a
know
comedy writer that does political commentary, and she's one of the funniest fucking people I've ever seen on Twitter. And she was just she was kind of a nobody on Twitter when she kind of started, but she was a comedy writer. But her political commentary is so scathing and so freaking hilarious. Does anybody else know who I'm talking about? I don't know how to pronounce her last name. I'll send it to her. But you'll love her.
Yeah, I want to see her.
Oh, she's so funny. But go ahead, Dog's Mom.
And your love of ferrets, Mary Kate, is touching.
All things.
But to me, right now, what we have is almost like 1984, because they go and they say, well, I know I'm a man, but I'm now a woman, and I was always a woman, like back to when they were born. Just nonsense where we're supposed to accept and play along with the fact that they're no longer a man, but they never were a man. It's like you got to put it down the memory hole, which is ridiculous because no one, and they're getting right. This is going to eventually, just like it has happened in Canada and in the UK, going to push this as if you'll be punished if you don't agree that, yes, this person is now a woman and always was a woman. Also, we as a female are, we're not as strong. We're not as fast. We're not, there's in many ways that we are less than a male when it comes to physicality. So we are vulnerable in a bathroom where you're literally, pulling down your clothes, you're using the restroom, you're in a place where you're very vulnerable. And at this point, and I've seen it a lot, Mary Kate, and some of the things you read, they're not just wanting to be accepted and just be thought of as one of the girls and don't mind me. They're forcefully in there. They're taking pictures. They're talking about, doing gross things in there. They're talking about forcing their quote girl dick, as you love to say, onto people. It's a form of violence that is getting more and more and more. And I think that is the autogynephilia part of it, where they're just, they do have a hatred of women, and they want to barge into women's spaces and locker rooms where there's young girls, like that guy at the health club wanting to shave his balls there, in front of the mirror with little girls.
That was
Yeah,
ridiculous.
I don't think so.
That was utterly
And
ridiculous.
I'm just saying that I feel like there is a hatred level that's there, and it's becoming more and more and more. And you mentioned John Money, Steve. John Money is kind of sort of the father of transgenderism, I guess. And his experiment was a total failure, complete and utter and total failure.
Yeah.
He should have cut transgenderism off right there because it was obvious it was a failure. His influence, Alfred Kinsey, back at, the
Kinsey was pretty odd too. Kinsey, I've read the Kinsey report and things. There's some pretty weird stuff too.
He's
well, and they were both pedophiles, supporters.
Yeah.
And Kinsey actually used pedophiles' descriptions of how they abused children in his data, and no one ever questioned it, for God's sake. But Kinsey, I don't know how many people know this, Kinsey was very good friends with Hugh Hefner and helped him set up Playboy. All of this is together with kink and with abuse and with sexuality. It's all very deviant and deep, and
it's all tied together to some degree.
It's all tied together.
But let me.
Did you know that Kinsey helped set up Playboy?
No, I didn't. No.
Yes.
Yeah, I did not know that, and I do remember Playboy back when they actually had, like boobs in there.
Don't say articles. Don't say articles.
They had good cartoons. Are you kidding? Screw the articles. The cartoons were brilliant. Okay, so I do want to bring up Jessica. I gave Jessica rights to come up, so I think Jessica has a lot to add here, if you don't mind, because Jessica's been in the sports, right? Jessica is biological male that has transitioned later on in life to female, that is heavy into the sports scene, has done stuff with Riley Gaines, and been on Jubilee with Blair White talking about this subject and stuff like that. So finally we can get a voice from somebody who identifies as transgender, because again, I want to have a whole bunch of voices as possible. So if Jessica can come up here and speak, that'd be great. And Jessica, you there? And then I got Planarwalk, who may be coming in as well. So when Jessica gets up here, I know I approved her. Let me try again. Jessica, approve. All right, so Jessica, I approved you. Planarwalk, I just approved you as well. So see if you can come up. Planarwalk is also trans. So again, I don't want an echo chamber. So we have two trans people now. So let them talk to Mary and have a conversation there, because I know one of them really wants to. Planner, are you there? And I really hate spaces sometimes. Hello, Planarwalk, Jessica. Well, they figured out. I'll get another hand going. Oh wait, who's that? Go ahead, Roger. Was that you? Go ahead.
Thank you. So sorry. I hope that's okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I really wanted just to say I completely 100% agree with Mary Kate about the fact that this is a fetish. There's absolutely no question about that. And I think that what's happening is that all these conversations are just distracting from that at all costs. They know that they are men. They do. And the thing is about predatory narcissists, they know they're behaving badly as well. And that's the thrill of it. It's not, I don't think it's something that a lot of men, I think this is why we don't see a lot of male allies, because it's a very difficult conversation to have. But it is predatory, and we're not talking about enough about the way women are sort of represented as being hysterical. This is about safeguarding. And earlier on, we mentioned, what is a female gender? and somebody said it's a philosophical idea. But can we just acknowledge how dehumanizing that is? And you know, we don't it just completely eradicates. Women know what we are, and we don't need a man to come in and
wasn't Simone de Beauvoir the one that said that the women has a gender and all that stuff?
Simone de Beauvoir is often misinterpreted with the quote that, you know, a woman is not born but made, or something along those lines. And she didn't mean that men could become women. She meant that the social norms that women grow up to behave by are forced upon the female sex. They're not inherent things that we're born with. They're things that are applied to us from the time we're very young.
Well, a girl becomes a woman, a boy becomes a man, right? Those are societal things, right? I mean, a girl will learn to become a woman, and a boy will learn to become a man. Jessica, I think I got yours working. I'm working on getting Planarwalks for some reason. But Jessica, hi. Jessica? Why is it still says listener to me? Am I doing something wrong here? Because I'm approving both of Planarwalk and Jessica. Do I have to maybe come back in? Let me refresh on my end. Give me 1 second here. Because
I'm here.
Oh, hey, is that Planner?
No, that's Jessica.
Oh, that's Jessica. Okay. Hey, how are you? Long time no talk. but go ahead.
I'm tired. I was at the track all day. I want to say hi to Mary. Is Mary Cate still on here? I don't see her.
Go ahead.
I'm here. Hello.
I'm going to give you guys the floor while I figure out what's going on with Planarwalk. Go ahead.
Hey, girl. I just want to say thank you for always taking the stand and not caving to all the hate you get. You are amazing, and don't give up. You're the best, okay?
Hey, thank you.
That's the best. Come on, you're trans. I want to have a discussion between you and Mary because you guys don't agree. I gotta not look, Mary. I side with Mary on 90% of stuff too, maybe even 99%. But I wanted to see where the court of a public opinion and the landscape has changed, where you may not agree. That's what I'm interested in. You know, hey, Mary.
I agree with everything she says. Like, Mary Cate has never said that someone like me shouldn't exist in life.
No, I don't believe that.
Yeah, so I don't disagree with anything she has to say because everything she says is truthful and just facts. Like, everybody who knows me. Like, there's a few other people on here who've met me in real life. XX is on here. So, but like, I'm not the invader. I'm staying in my lane. I exist. I'm not trying to take anything from women. I'm not claiming to be one. So there is no disagreement between me and Mary.
Well, there is.
There are some, I would say, you know.
Well, there is some disagreement, and let me
criticals that don't want me to even be out in public. That's the only thing that I can fight against, really, with anybody on this space. Is some people say that just my appearance in public is advocating for transgenderism, and I don't agree with that. But
let's throw a hand grenade in here, and all cards on the table. Jessica has been nothing but a great friend since I met her, and I do use her female pronouns, even though Jessica doesn't care one way or another. But Jessica's a great person. Matter of fact, it's funny because she was on the Jubilee and wasn't getting any time, and I'm like, hey, come on my channel, I'll give you time. And I like the things that you had to say, but like Mary's position is that, you know, you being trans, you know, going out in public in what she would call woman's face, she finds offensive, and I understand where she's coming from. That I get that. I get that people have a right to be offended. What do you say to that? I mean, how do you respond to people that are offended by that? Because Mary Cate's not some radical that says, "Oh, trans people, you know, should just be blown up from the earth." You know, those are the far right wing conservative nut jobs, which I don't think anybody in here, you know, would agree with. That's not even up for the discussion, in my opinion. Right? Those are just radical lunatics who, you know, want to go out there and throw people off buildings and shit. But what would you say to Mary's argument that you're what she would be calling, wearing woman's face?
I get that one a lot, and when it's coming from a woman, yeah, it bothers me because I'm not doing this to offend anybody, and I hate making women uncomfortable. It pisses me off. So yeah, it sucks. I can't deny that what I'm doing or what I look like is, my version of what a woman would look like if I was a woman. This is the best I got. Like, I wasn't dealt a great hand as far as the way I look. I get it. I'm old. I don't pass as a female. I never will. I used to want to as a kid, but then as you get older, you just realize it's never going to happen. So I don't really have an answer other than I was on the assumption that Mary Kate's okay with someone who lives my life. She doesn't want me removed from the earth, but as long as I stay in my lane, it's okay. But if that's not okay, then I don't really have an answer other than I'm here.
Let's find out. Mary?
So, and I said earlier, I think that, you have been nothing but kind, and I have no desire to get into a tussle with you or encourage you to not exist. You definitely exist. My position is that when you get the fake breasts, when you take on a female name, when really it's mocking women's bodies. And I think there's a big distinction between being an effeminate man and mocking women's bodies. And, I think that I fully support men who want to be effeminate, but it's when you make these mocking alterations to yourself, or, the ones who wear the big fake breastplates, that is very offensive to women, and it does make women uncomfortable, no matter what you are claiming your motivation is. So that's my position.
And that's totally fair. I guess I don't have a rebuttal for it. Like I said, I never want to argue with a woman because I respect women too much to actually, go against their beliefs. So I don't have an answer to that.
Let me ask you this then, Jessica, and then I'm gonna get Planarwalk in here because I think
I agree to a point, but I don't think it's me mocking any. I'm just trying to cool the jets in my brain so that I can walk around not pissed off at the world and not pissed off at myself because I hate the way I look. So
do you think it's a mild compromise between everybody, though? I mean, do you think that, again, recognizing that people are going to have different views, and Jessica being a good person, and I can vouch, Jessica is a very kind person. The minor stuff that you would disagree on is pretty inconsequential compared to the things that I think both of you would really truly agree upon, like the things that we agree upon. I think that's how I kind of look at things. Sure, we can talk about, as Mary pointed out, we can discuss the things we don't agree upon, and that's what adults do, which unfortunately a lot of trans people don't do. I have one in here that will be speaking here in a second, who's a little more controversial, but I've known a very long time. But Mary, would you agree that maybe the minuscule stuff just kind of pushed to the side when it comes to like the bigger picture stuff? Because we're not going to agree on everything.
I think that, if we are accepting that some men are allowed to wear women as a costume, then we are opening the door for them all to wear women as a costume, because all they have to do is say, well, I don't, I'm not like the other ones, and for me, it really comes down to what I wish for you, Jessica, and I genuinely mean this, I wish for you that you could be comfortable with yourself as who you are. And I think that, whoever gave you the breast augmentation, whoever encouraged you to go down this road, I think did you a great disservice, because it sounds like, you still have to put on this mask every day in order to be comfortable with yourself. And in the process, it's offensive to women. So, my biggest hope for you would be that you could come to a place where you could love yourself. And also, you say you respect women too much. Yeah, I just wish you could hear women when we say that even if it's not your intention to mock women, when you do these things to your body to imitate female bodies, it is making a mockery of women. Does that make sense?
It totally does. And the only thing I would come back on that is I speak with women and I believe they are 100% being genuine with me and not just lying to my face, but some women don't see it that way. And so, yeah, I agree that
you agree she has a valid point, at least, whether you accept it or not.
Yeah, I agree that if it makes her uncomfortable and she feels that it is mocking women, I'm not going to disagree with that, but I can't go through life the way I was because I was super pissed off, not really super suicidal or anything like that, but I mean, it does cross my mind, but
well, don't do that. I would miss you. Don't do that.
So angry with who I am and who I was. I was a miserable person. Like, nobody liked me. I mean, I had friends and acquaintances, but I was hard to be around. And having no testosterone in my system, and this is all, it doesn't matter. Like, it's still the fact that I look the way I look, and that's offensive to some women. I get it. I can't change it, and I don't think I'm not going to fix it by the time I die, which is within the next 20 years because of my age. So I don't really
don't tell me that. I'm older than you. Don't do that. I think that both of you make valid points, and I think that's really the point of these discussions. But I am going to throw in a hand grenade here because Planarwalk has a very, very different position than you, Mary. So, hey, Planner, it's been a while. I'm sure you got a lot to add to this. Oh, can you guys hear Planner? Because I can't.
I can't hear anything.
I cannot.
Planner, you might have to look at your mic because nobody can hear you. What? Whoa. Just probably exit and come back in. It's probably just a mic glitch with Twitter Spaces. So, because Mary had to do something similar earlier, and
yeah.
Yeah.
Jessica, can I ask you while we have you here, did this start as a fetish for you, the cross-dressing, or has there ever been an element of that in the way that you seek to look?
Yeah, the whole AGP thing, yeah, I get that a lot just because of my age and because I am a late transitioner. Even trans people of the millennial generation accuse me of the AGP. Anybody who's over 30 is going to get accused of being the AGP or the fetish. Like, it's never been a thing for me. I can say that honestly. Dressing in women's clothing is, and always was, to me, a pain in the ass. Like, I freaking hate nylons. I do wear heels sometimes, but casual look is the best thing. And even as a youngster, like I don't know, I've never had that connection between sexuality and being a woman. Not that I am a woman, but you know what I'm saying. So no, to answer your question, it wasn't sex-based for me, but the AGP thing is real, and it is so, like, I talk to so many guys here in town that are just cross-dressers, and they're always reaching out to me like, oh, I want to do what you do. I'm like, I don't do this for fun. And once I tell them, the surgeries and the hormones get rid of my sex drive, and they bail out. They're like, oh, okay. But there are people who transition just because of the fetish. So it's real. And yes.
Yeah, I think we all agree upon that. And I think that was really what has harmed the trans community, that they were so inclusive with the AGP males that they had to include anybody that says they're trans. Oh, you're automatically trans. Planner, is your mic working now?
I mean, I get accused of the AGP because, yeah, I have overly large breasts. You brought this up earlier, so I'll say it. Like, my plastic surgeon is actually a woman, and she made my breasts way too big. I did not want them this big. I freaking hate them. But
Why did you want breasts at all?
I can't afford to get them reduced. Just, I have a very masculine frame, and that's.
Well, what do the breasts do for you? I guess I'm asking. Why get breasts at all?
To feminize the silhouette is basically, to a passerby in public, you might not glance twice if the silhouette is there. I don't know. That's just the mindset of a trans person. That doesn't mean I'm right. I'm not saying.
Right. But why is it important for you that you trick passersby into believing at first glance maybe that you are a woman? I guess I'm asking, like, what does it do for you,
That is a good question.
Yeah, it kind of is.
That's if I say the answer that I thought of just now, you would again be reconfirmed in your woman face accusation. So yeah, I mean, it just the overall appearance, and I can look in the mirror and say, okay, that silhouette or that frame is less masculine with breasts, and I'm okay with that. And because of my generation, yeah, I dress a little more provocative in some scenarios. But I mean, when I go to work, I'm wearing a hoodie and capri pants. Like, that's my normal everyday attire. Like, I'm not really trying.
I think Mary would probably argue that I guess the breast augmentations would be analogous to like wearing earrings. It's just decorative.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
Aren't you a gay man in actuality?
Am I gay?
Yes.
That's the question? Yes, I have a boyfriend, yes. So I'm in a heterosexual relationship, is basically what it is.
How is that possible if you're both male?
Or, I mean, homosexual relationship. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. I'm sorry. I did not mean to say that. That's my bad.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, and again, when people recognize those kind of things, then I don't really take umbrage too much. I'm concentrating my efforts on the people that, literally say that a man who claims he's a woman can go into a lesbian bar and say, I'm a lesbian now, and start trying to think, that he's going to pick up a lesbian, and if they don't want to sleep with him, there something's wrong with them. That's gaslighting 101. I mean, that's just freaking ridiculously freaky, in my opinion. And it happens on these dating apps. I mean, with the whole giggle versus tickle thing, which we'll have to discuss next time. But I do want to get Planarwalk. I don't know what's happening to her speaker, so let me, or her speaker, whatever. I don't. Planner, is your speaker working?
Why do you give women's lexicon to men?
Excuse me, what do you mean?
Why do you use women's lexicon for men? Do women not deserve our own
nickname.
Words?
I just treat it as a nickname. Simple as that.
No, but do women not deserve our own words?
Well, words are usage, right? In society, we have
no, but she refers to female,
right?
And you don't have any trouble giving the language
but I also will call Buck
females,
but I also call Buck Angel he, right? So I'm
why?
Because I'm again, I just
you think it's kind.
No, it's more than that.
It's not kind to women.
But then you could argue it's not kind to men by saying Buck Angel's a man, right?
But men aren't the ones whose language is
I just treat it as a nickname. That's it. It's just a nickname. It's called a moniker.
Well,
they are monikers, right? I mean,
pronouns are monikers. He is not a moniker. You're not even using it when Buck's around. You're using it to talk about her.
No, I use
when
he.
She's not even there.
But I use he, right?
Because you just said of
because
Jessica.
He passed because right he
you
passed.
You just said of Jessica that Jessica doesn't care what pronouns are used.
Correct.
Yet you use women's pronouns.
I think Jessica prefers she
for him.
Right, Jessica, do you prefer she or does it matter?
Why does it matter when this is
Well,
about either women are
Jessica.
human.
Well, I'm asking
Either
Jessica.
women are human, and we have a
but
language
it's not a matter about humans. It's a matter about
or we're not.
It's a matter of usage of terminology where if you have a nickname,
inaccurate usage.
Well, yeah, we have what's called fictionalism. We also have things all the time where labels don't necessarily apply to what they are. Right? That's nothing unusual in the English language.
This isn't a label, though.
But it can be, right? I mean, these are still like terms they use to identify.
No, a pronoun.
A pronoun is
a stand-in for
it's
the
anaphoric,
actual,
right? A pronoun is you're an English teacher. A pronoun is an anaphoric statement, a word that refers to something prior. That's what anaphoric would be.
It stands in for the actual noun.
Correct, right? And if Jessica, the name Jessica is a female name, right? So she is congruent with that.
Jessica's a man.
But Jessica's name
is a really good fake $20 bill legal tender to you if it passes.
But she's asking me personally. Hang on, let me finish, please. She's asking me personally, right? This is not something I'm prescribing to society. She asked me why I refer to Jessica as she because it's congruent with her name Jessica. It matches the
fiction.
Sure, but it matches the female name.
Steve.
But
again,
slope.
How can you ever not do it once you start doing it?
Well,
and if you do it for some people because you like them, that you're saying that language really isn't. It doesn't.
Language is malleable.
To any reality
right?
At
I'm
all.
not. I'm not a.
It's not.
I'm not a prescriptivist. Right? I'm a descriptivist when it comes to linguistics, and so language is the words get meaning by usages, right? In the English language, this is how they attribute. If you read Russell. And everything I've ever read on linguistics, in the English language, what imparts meaning to a proposition is the words of the semantic content. And there's the same thing with linguistics. I have this whole discussion with atheism for that very reason. People want to prescribe atheism to be a very specific thing.
But this is top down. This isn't something that is evolving. This is top down.
But again,
this is courts forcing rape victims to call their rapist she and her.
But I'm not. That's prescribing. But no. But that's prescribing, right? Because that's prescription, right?
But you are perpetuating it. You are perpetuating this top-down erasure of female language, and I can see women's point there. Where do you believe that women deserve words with which to describe ourselves?
I don't believe anybody deserves any specific words because words go by usages. They're not. Nobody has their own. Nobody self-describes
anything. And if you start
anything,
using female terms and pronouns for males, then you are erasing female language.
In legal sense, yes, but I'm not talking about prescribing them. I'm just talking about my own social settings. Right, I just call Jessica she in my own social settings.
By your own argument, you're saying that usage changes.
Yes,
language, and you using female language for men.
But it's not prescribed. It's not a legal term, right? I agree in the legal term it shouldn't be.
Women.
I agree in the legal term it shouldn't be.
Women to give away our language to men.
Yeah, I don't think that anybody owns language. I don't think anybody owns words.
I'm from Canada. In Justice Canada's website, a woman is anyone who identifies as a woman.
Well, that's stupid, obviously. We all agree that's not.
But stupid.
That's right.
You say, oh, it's just stupid. Yeah, this is why there are men in women's prisons.
Which is, again, I'm something very much against, right? I mean, obviously, I'm very much against that.
But you're not really against it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, I am very much. Hang on. No. I'm not going to let you get away with that. I am very much against that. But one thing that really bugs me is don't tell me what my positions are. I will tell you, and then they can be discussed, right? And that's not my position. My position is I'm very much against any man, even if he's gone through gender reassignment surgery, any man being in a woman's prison, 100%, no exceptions. That's my position.
The only reason they're there is because of the language shift.
Yeah.
Well, no, there's a whole bunch of reasons why they push it, but it's not because of language, right? It's because of the way they're trying to rewrite legislation.
Language does normalize things, though.
Yeah.
I just have to, and I'm not Steve. I'm not trying to say I have trans friends too, and I use the pronouns they prefer, and I use their name. So I know people would be against me as well because I'm a centrist, but language does shape perception, And it is the entry point.
In the legal sense, yes. Again, but I'm not writing a legislation here, right? I'm just hanging out with a bunch of people, and I'm going to be treating Jessica the way that she wants to be treated. Simple as that. But Planner, I've been trying to get you in here, and I just don't know if your mic's working. So,
does that work now?
Yeah. Okay. So, hang on, everybody. So, Planner, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and your channel. But I do want you to have a dialogue with Mary on this, because I don't want anybody to say that I've spoken for any trans person or any fuckery like that. So, or I have an echo chamber. So here's the chance for two very diametrically opposite people to have a conversation for a few minutes, and I just want to listen. Sound good?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly where to start though.
Anywhere you want. Go ahead.
I'm Planarwalk. I make YouTube videos. The topics I focus on are things like pseudoscience. I also talk about LGBT topics. Just whatever I want to talk about, really. And that's me.
All right. Well, obviously, you're trans and you identify and you subscribe to gender theory, which we don't agree upon on Twitter hardly at all ever, right? We have very different views. But I do consider you a friend. I get along with you. I respect, your viewpoints, even though I don't agree with them. But I respect the ability to have a discussion with you. How about that? But Mary has a very different view. So that's why I want to see where, you guys maybe find middle ground. I don't know. I mean, because she would argue that you're not a female and that you're just kind of making a mockery of women.
Yeah, that does seem to be a position. But I actually do have a question for Mary, because Mary, you seem, from what I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have this thing called what is it? Listen to trans people, right? And I want to know, what exactly is your process for grabbing the things that you display?
I open their forums and I read what they're talking about. That is what I do in that series.
But she posts the receipts as she actually posts the actual tweets, and the Reddit, she posts them on as she's speaking about them.
Correct.
But it wouldn't just be that you read them, because do you show anything like just trans people showing themselves, saying, hey, I went and I went on a date today, or something like that? Do you post things like that, or is it exclusively things that paint trans people in a negative light?
No, it's them painting themselves in a negative light, wouldn't you say?
Well, sure, but like if you're going around finding specifically trans people...
these are some of their most upvoted posts. These are things they write in their books. These are things they say in interviews. These are entirely public. These are posts that come up again and again and again. They're not uncommon topics. They are not cherry picked. If anything, like, this is an entire orchard that I'm choosing from.
Except the things that I see from you, I do not, and I might have a limited view of what I see from you, but I don't see that anywhere else. I never see that in any of the discussions I have with trans people. Even on the few times I go to Reddit, I just see, like on r/trans, all I see there is just, people posting photos, really.
Yeah, I don't do photos. I am reading their own words. I am giving them a platform and raising trans women's voices. So you're welcome.
Except it seems to be very selective, from what I can tell. It's
absolutely not. And you already said, well, I don't go there, so go have a look. Honest to God.
I can go to let's go to r/trans on Reddit. That's a
go to male to female, because that's where I go. That's where I'm getting these things from.
Hold on. Give me a few seconds. Oh.
By the way, I wouldn't even know those sites existed if it wasn't for you, Mary. So I'm going to hold that to you. I'm going to hold you accountable for that because you took my innocence on that shit. Thank you very much. Okay. God, I seriously, I would have. Sorry, not sorry. I would have never thought that shit was out there, and to the degree that it was.
It
honestly,
absolutely is out there to that degree, and with every video that I make, there are hundreds more posts just like the ones that I'm reading.
I don't know how you sift through it to pick the ones you want.
So I just had a look. Here's the top one. The first one that comes up is trans people who badmouth DIY do not realize how privileged they are. That's a post about DIY HRT. Then the next one down is saying about how HRT, they've started HRT and depression and anxiety have vanished.
I see. Number 4, my girlfriend told me I had breasts. Hello, everyone. I figured out why girls, quote, know about us. It's the smell. Based on my experience, 11 months HRT, and talking to other cis girls, the conclusion is clear. Man stinks. I mean, what are some funny nicknames for estrogen? I've heard Feminems and Titty Skittles, but what are your favorites? This is all on the front page.
I'm getting so demonetized.
It's not anything that I have to go looking for.
I
can't believe I broke down and finally bought a purse.
Titty Skittles.
We just got live. Listen to trans people. That was the best ever.
I mean, these things don't seem too bad. Like the funny nicknames for estrogen. There are funny names for estrogen. I've heard other ones like antihistamines. I've heard antibiotics.
But what about the guys that go into the women's bathroom?
I'm in menopause. It's actually not funny. It's actually really not funny.
Oh, here we go. This is still on the front page, just below those ones. Girls who are pre-everything, what are you looking forward to the most? I don't really know. Boobs, I guess. I'm looking forward to everything, probably emotions, with boobs taking second place and girl smell third. I mean, this is... Oh, here we go. I really, really, really can't wait to get boobs. It's all just a fetish. This is the stuff that's on their front page. And no, I'm done being accused of cherry picking to paint you people in a bad light. You do it to yourselves.
I mean, when it comes to boobs, though, like... I've known plenty of people who want boobs. When I talked about,
I don't,
or want bigger boobs, should I say? Like when I talked about potentially starting estrogen and the effects that estrogen could have, I know someone who was like, I mentioned how I can grow breasts from that, and this person said,
"Well, you grow boobs,
This person that I know said, "Oh, would that work for me?" Because she wanted bigger boobs. There's plenty of people that even a lot of women.
Men don't have boobs. This is not normal. It's not a normal thing for men to want.
I mean, it's. They can act as boobs.
And then you ask those women, and you get down to the bottom of why they might want to get bigger breasts, and it all comes back to the male gaze, and it comes back to pornification of women. It comes down to objectification of women, no matter who is seeking out the bigger boobs.
Sometimes it's just they want to feel comfortable.
Why? Why would they feel more comfortable with bigger boobs?
Because bigger boobs can be associated with femininity.
Breasts are for feeding babies.
I don't have big breasts. I am perfectly fine being female and I don't need bigger breasts. That doesn't make anyone more or less female. But a man with man boobs is still a man. Why do you think these men talk about wanting boobs so much? Because I'll tell you what they say. It's because they like to touch them and then touch themselves.
Well, it's something where it's boobs are often associated with femininity, right? And like there are a lot of things
Men
that
No,
associate
breasts are associated
femininity.
with being female.
yeah,
Having
and that,
bigger breasts doesn't make you more feminine because we are already female.
I mean, some people will argue that having breasts makes you more feminine. You know,
Well,
like
some people are wrong and stupid. That's fine. They're still wrong.
Well, what about the over-sexualization? Like, for example, Mary will have readings of these men who get off, jerking themselves off in a female restroom. And it's not just one or two. I mean, there's a shit ton of it. And again, thank you for fucking destroying my innocence on that, Mary. I've never thought that'd be a thing. You know,
type of porn dedicated to men wanking off in women's restrooms.
I don't know. I don't get it. I don't know what the hell is fucking fetishizing with fucking a bathroom where you fucking, do your biological necessity. I don't get that. But again, the people that eat fucking
it's the intrusion
shit,
on women's spaces that gets them off.
I think you're right on that. I think it's the knowing, the power dynamic.
Correct. It's the invading our spaces, and they talk about, oh, it's so hot listening to chicks pee. I mean, it's just men, basically wanting to rape our spaces.
Or knowing that nobody can do anything about
psychological
it.
Rape.
Do you think it's because a lot of the men that do that realize now that there's nothing to be done about it legally in some places, although the tide is turning on this very quickly? Do you think that's a power trip that they have?
Absolutely. And they talk about it all the time.
What do you say to that, Planner?
Okay. I'll agree that.
Planner, why do you think you're a woman? What do you think makes you a woman?
Let me respond to the thing before. I'll agree that going into women's spaces or any private spaces, like even going into men's spaces and jacking off, is weird, and I would denounce anyone who were to do that. But I've talked to trans people, and maybe they don't tell me that, but like I've never heard anyone that I know doing that, and I know a lot of trans people.
Well, Mary has heard of them because she sees them all the time on the Reddit and these groups that she reads.
Yeah, just because you're not going to cop to it or your friends aren't going to cop to it doesn't mean it isn't the reality that women are living with.
Yeah, but that's like there's a few people do. Clearly, there are a few people that are going to be doing that.
It's not a few. It's not a few.
But like, I'd argue that it's when you go out and look for it, it's easy to be like, oh.
No, I don't have to go out and look for it. It is all over everywhere that they are posting.
I mean, I can go through. How long will it be? How long do I have to go through MTF to find one? Someone.
Why don't you go to my pinned tweet, and why don't you start with number 1, work yourself up to number 50, and then come back and talk to me.
And while you're doing that, if you want to go look real quick, because she does have a pin on her Twitter thing. Rose, I think you had your hand for a while, and somebody noted to me, and I didn't mean to ignore you. So if Rose has a quick question, by all means. And before I forget, make sure you're following Mary and me on Twitter, because we're going to be doing these every Saturday night. Or I'm going to be doing it, not Mary, but I'm going to be doing it every Saturday night, pretty much.
I'd be happy to come back and do this. This is great.
And here's the thing, Mary. Here's what I really appreciate: people like Planner and Jessica. Even though nobody sees eye to eye with that, Planner and Jessica are the two very few trans people I know that are willing to have these conversations. You at least got to respect that, don't you?
Nope.
Not all.
I would like to hear from Planner why he thinks he's a woman.
Well, I'd argue that when it comes to things that I've experienced, it seems to be, and this could be wrong, but it seems to be that I have experiences that are closer to that women experience.
Everything you experience is a male experience because you're a man.
So men typically get hit on by creepy straight men?
Everything that you have ever experienced has been a male experience because you are male.
So the male experience is getting hit on by creepy straight men? Is that you'd say that's a male experience?
If your experience is that you've been hit on by creepy men, that is a male experience because you are a male.
But I don't deny that I am male, but I do not
So
think
why
that
do you
male
think you're a
is
woman? Let's start
because
here. What is a woman? Can you define woman for us?
I would say that a woman is
not what you would say. I want to know what the definition of a woman is.
I'd say that a woman is someone who has a gender that is typically associated with femininity.
So stereotypical performances of femininity is, in your opinion, what makes a woman. So you think that there are male women because some men are feminine.
I wouldn't say that it's because they're feminine. I'd say that it's because their gender is woman. It's like typically, like there are masculine women. That doesn't mean that they're no longer women, right? You know, butch lesbians,
You're
for
so
example,
close.
are women.
You're so close to getting it. So there are feminine men, and that doesn't make them women.
I would say that it's a gender, and gender is often tied to gender is generally tied to cultural aspects.
Right, there's stereotypes assigned to the sexes, but a man who is feminine, which, you know, we would agree that sex is female, male, gender would be femininity, masculinity. You have already agreed that being a masculine female doesn't make you a man. Do you understand this? Like, just because you perform feminine stereotypes doesn't make you any sort of a woman. You will never be a woman. You are a man.
I would say that it's not so much because you can have you can have feminine men, but then at the same time, I would argue that a feminine man is different to a trans woman.
In what way?
Well, we can start with things like HRT.
Nope, those are things you do to yourself. Those are choices that you make with outside help. What makes a man who believes he's a woman different than any other man?
I would say that it's due to the brain structures or the
your brain is male because your brain is in a male body. You didn't grow a female brain in a male body. No matter what you prefer, no matter what kind of personality you have, no matter how feminine, you still have a male brain in a male body.
Well, generally, I don't know if it's coming up. It's me speaking.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, generally, cisgender men don't experience gender dysphoria to do with like.
So were you in here earlier when I read the symptoms from the DSM-5 of gender dysphoria? Because if not, I suggest you go look them up and let us know, if you think that those are symptoms or just personality traits, because they apply to very many men and very many women.
You were reading the gender dysphoria for children, which is different from the gender dysphoria for adults.
I was reading the symptoms. Yeah.
That's not the.
Let's pretend that I'm going with your basis of this here. Let's pretend that there is a thing called gender dysphoria. Why is the only treatment for it for you to mock women and to make women uncomfortable and, take our words, take our spaces? Why is that a legitimate treatment for your mental illness? If we're going to go ahead and, if we're going to go on the presumption that gender dysphoria is real, and why would that be different than giving liposuction to an anorexic?
Well, it's the difference is does the treatment actually work? Giving liposuction to an anorexic isn't going to help them in any way.
Oh, it would make them feel very good. It would make them very happy.
Would it? Would it actually?
Yes. Does pretending to be a woman actually make you people happy? No. You go through, all sorts of things, and then I still read all these posts, oh, I'm never gonna pass my shoulders, da da da. And we see in the statistics that suicide rates actually rise after medical intervention.
I mean, I can anecdotally say that I'm a lot happier since starting HRT. Is life perfect? Of course not. Life is never perfect, but it's...
Why does your happiness supersede women's safety or dignity?
Well, I'm not a danger to women.
You're a male. Statistically, you are all dangerous to women, and statistically, those of you who pretend to be women have higher rates of incarceration for violent crimes, especially violent sexual crimes. We were talking about this earlier, but transvestism has long been associated with violent male sexual crimes.
Okay, so when it comes to the incarceration for sexual crimes, it's sexual offences. And firstly, the data on this is very unclear, primarily because the one that I see the most is in England, where they don't actually, when they publish the data, they do not distinguish between, if they incarcerate a male, it's classified... They classify it as male. They don't say, oh, male who identifies as a woman or anything like that. They just say male. And if they incarcerate a female, it
so
just says
you
female.
think they've made up these statistics?
Well, if you want to show me where the statistics come from, then sure. But the place that I often see them come from is not that I see them claim to come from is not the place that they actually...
It's from the Ministry of Justice records.
I have looked into certain records, and if they're the records that I think they are, you can feel free to... is there a way to maybe put in a chat or something where they come from?
You could put it on my timeline. There's nothing really that could be put in the space itself, except for like a link. Okay. And even then, I can't do it on a PC. I think it has to be done from a phone. At least I haven't figured it out.
Secondly, the next problem is that when it comes to sexual offences, is that sexual offences include a bunch of different things that... So obviously it includes things like rape, sexual assault, and those things, but it also includes what's prostitute? I don't know what the legal thing is for that, but yeah, if you are a prostitute, you can get and you get arrested for that, then it will be put down as a sexual offense.
So why are men like you so much more likely to be convicted of sexual offenses?
Well, if that is true, if the rates of sexual offences is higher, then it could be that we're more likely to do things like sex work.
Why are you more likely to be sexual deviants than regular men?
That's not a sexual deviance.
You don't think that exhibitionism and these all of these kink scenes that they're in, you don't think any of that is deviant? You don't think that sexualized cross-dressing is a deviancy?
Well, sex work is not being sexually deviant.
In what way is it not?
Sex work is sex work, sexually deviant.
Sex
yeah,
work
I would argue that sex work, quote unquote, is a deviancy in our culture. It is, transactionalizing sex and in the process objectifying women, and you compound that when you LARP as a woman and then engage in sex work. You are further commodifying and objectifying and sexualizing the female body.
Just a real quick little bit of housekeeping. I got to step away for a minute. I have like 4 people that want to speak. If there's anybody that's in speaker row right now that wants to drop down, and by all means, we got a lot of good speakers here, so I don't really want anybody to drop. But if Gwen, if you already spoke, just said your piece, or somebody, there's like one or two that want to get in, but I have to step away for like 1 minute. But you tell him Steve Dave as co-host real quick, okay?
Yep, I got you, man.
Drop me. I'm okay with being dropped.
Okay.
You can drop me too.
But going with the conversation there, Planarwalk and Mary Kate, that was good.
I've been waiting for a while. Can I speak?
Sure.
Yes, please.
Hi, Mary Kate. It's so great to
Hey,
see
Rose.
you.
You too.
It's been a pleasure hearing you speak and defend women and women's rights and the dignity of women, which clearly many of these men need to learn. So I'm not trying to be hostile or harsh, but I am very direct. So sometimes I can sound that way. So forgive me if I do, but I'm just going to be very direct. Any man who calls himself a woman has no respect for women. Any man who wears woman like a costume has no respect for women. Any man who goes along with this mockery of women has no respect for women. Stop being kind to men who are making a mockery of women and start being kind to women who are telling you that we do not want these men wearing our skins. Start being kind to women. These are men.
Fully agree with you.
Yeah, I'm not talking to you, Mary Kate, obviously.
No, I'm just supporting your position.
Yeah, so I'm so tired of these men saying, well, I'm just going to be kind to him. You know, calling men she is why we have men in women's bathrooms. Calling men her is why we have men in women's prisons. Calling men she and her is why we have men on women's sports teams. Stop participating in an ideology and a movement that is erasing women in public life and law. Stop it. And stop excusing it in the name of kindness. It is pure misogyny. There is never an excuse for any man taking breasts or wearing a wig or a female silhouette. How disgusting is that? We're not a silhouette. We're not a wig. We're not makeup. Do you not have respect for the woman do you not have respect for the woman who brought you into this world? Clearly not. Woman is not a costume. Women are the sex that brought every single human being into the world. You wouldn't even be here without a woman. Learn to have some damn respect for women. That's all there. This movement is anti-woman. It is misogyny. And stop saying I'm being kind. It's disgusting. And if more men had the guts to say to their fellow men, stop it. Stop making a mockery of women, it would end now. But it's because so many men go along with it because they're cowards and they care more about men's feelings than they do about women, that this is why we are here. Be men. Be men. Stand up.
All right, let me address that, Rose, because a lot of that was probably directed to me. So let me give you pushback on that. My position is very clear: is that I treat people equality-wise. Again, I will call Buck Angel a he, even though he's a she, right? And I think it has to do with freedoms. I put individual freedoms because I'm an American, and again, maybe somebody's from Canada or from other countries, but as an American, I have civil liberties and freedoms that are encoded and codified in the Constitution that I swore to defend and uphold.
You do. I'm just telling you.
Let me get my position out. But let me get my position out, Rose, because you attacked my position, saying that trying to insinuate that we're being cowardly, and it's not a matter. Wait, let me finish though. But I'm explaining why. I'm explaining my position on here because it's not cowardice. It's the opposite. It is standing up for people's individual freedoms, which I put on the highest pedestal of anything else. Not women, not men, not ideology, not beliefs, not anything else, but individual freedoms to express somebody as they want. I also believe that society doesn't have to go along with that. Nobody has an onus or a duty to go along with that, right? But if somebody wants to express themselves differently, then I put individual freedoms higher than anything else. That's why I have my approach the way that I do. People don't have to agree with it, but it's not cowardice by any stretch of imagination. It is upholding the statutes of the American way and the Constitution that people have the right to live their lives the way they want. That's my view. Now, I like Planarwalk and Michael to weigh in on that. Planner from the trans point of view.
Before you let the men
Sure.
weigh in, can I respond to you? Before you
Of
let
course.
the men in
Well,
where
you asked the
women's
men.
weigh in.
You asked the men.
Before you let the, can I respond as a
Yeah, of
woman,
course,
or
of
do
course.
you want the men who call themselves women to weigh in?
Well, I want all of them to weigh in, but you asked the men the
Well,
question,
okay,
and I
well,
answered as a
woman,
man.
Can I, as a woman, do you want to hear what a woman says to you in response to your
Well, of course, but
statement?
I've heard it. But go ahead, of course, absolutely.
Okay.
But then let the men
Yeah,
respond.
well, it must be so nice to have the privilege and luxury to say that you respect the freedoms of everyone. It is this freedom of speech that you speak about that has forced little girls to have boys in their bathrooms.
No, it doesn't.
It is
No,
this
that's not. That's not
freedom.
true. That's
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
No,
This
it's
is how
not
we
because I'm
got
against.
here.
But here's the thing, Rose.
This
I'm
is how
against
we got
that.
here.
But I'm against that, though.
But no, you participate in the
No, it's not.
ideology.
It's
that
not. It's
yes,
not.
you do.
It's not a matter of
Yes, you
participating in the ideology.
You
It's
are
participation
absolutely
in the freedoms.
participating in the ideology. You have far more respect for men who call themselves
No.
women than
No.
women.
No,
And
no,
I
no,
would
No, that's not. That's.
urge
I think that's a really bad hot take, though,
I
Rose.
would urge
Honestly,
you to
but that's okay.
reflect on that. I would
I
urge
mean,
you to
you're-
reflect on that. Thank
I'm-
you. Thank you for letting me speak.
Of
Good
course,
night.
absolutely.
Can I
So
weigh in there, please?
I think
Steve?
Well, absolutely. But let's get. I want people to respond because she asked the men, and I think it's fair because again, it's being directed to us that we have a right to respond on those things, right?
Oh, yeah, I know, but I'm going to question one thing that you said
Sure.
here.
Yeah, of course.
You said this is about freedom of speech and freedom of expression.
Individualities,
Okay,
yeah.
but it's the men who are expressing themselves that way. That's you're saying they have a right to do that.
Anybody has a
But
right to,
that's
and men
not
or women
what-
do.
but-
Men or women,
Okay.
doesn't matter.
And women, okay.
Yeah.
But that's not what you're doing. You're supporting that with your speech, which is a second act.
No,
It's not. Yes.
Well,
by
hang on.
calling a man.
Do you realize though it's a
That's
minor
supporting.
but it's a
not,
minor.
It's not
listen,
being. It's
listen.
not freedom of speech.
But, hey,
It's
but
not
hear me
freedom
out. Hear me
of
out
expression.
here. Hear me out though. I deal with a lot of people. Okay, thousands
Sure.
of people. I mean, honestly, before a bunch of stuff happened, I had 10 million freaking downloads on freaking iTunes. Okay, I had a pretty decent following. And of course, things get divisive, right? In this particular circumstances, when I have like these struggle sessions and anything like that, I have to be able to have some kind of bridges, or I'm never going to be able to have people come in and argue about the things that I want to have argued. If it's a minor inconvenience by calling somebody by the pronoun they want to be called for, in as far as like these types of spaces, it's minor as compared to having them come in and talk about the bigger picture kind of shit. It's just a minor inconvenience, and I'd rather focus on the bigger shit. But it is minor compared to having women. It's minor compared to having men in women's prisons. That's major. That's major.
But
But
that's how they
think,
get there.
I think.
But that's
I
my
think
point
the
of view.
point, Steve. I think the point that the women are trying to make is that you are coming from a point of view where you are promoting individualism, correct?
Right. It's not misogyny. It's not misandry.
We are coming
you can't
from
have
a
one
point
without
of
the other
view
that way.
that is concerned with the collective. We are concerned with how these individual choices are collectively affecting women
You're looking
as a
holistically.
whole.
Yeah, holistically.
Correct. And
Right.
I would argue with you that having, a society that is free from deviance being in charge is the greater issue
we all
here.
agree on
Because what we're
that.
seeing,
We all agree on
okay,
that.
but hear me out. Because when you decide on your own, to be contrarian for the sake of individuality's sake, or, because you think you're being kind
I'm not
to these
contrarian.
people, I'm just saying it perpetuates this ideology, which is then invading our culture and negatively affecting and actively harming women. So our concern is women as a collective, not men as individuals.
But you do
Because
understand.
of course there are kind, men who pretend to be women, but how this is affecting women is we are seeing our very existence being erased in law. And by participating in this ideology, you perpetuate it.
But you do agree that, would you not agree though, that there has to be some compromises in order to have some kind of societal cohesion. And again, if I don't make minor compromises, then I'm never going to have the conversations I want with people, because they're just not going to come in and not be able to have the bigger conversations. Because again,
I see what your goals are, but our goals are defining women as female in law and defending the dignity of female
I agree
language.
with you on that, though, right? We agree legally speaking. I'm 100% on board with you on that. You know that, right? But I mean,
I think if you want the culture to change in such a way to where these legal changes are reversed or stop happening, you can't participate in it.
Yeah, and my view is that bigger picture stuff would be a minor inconvenience to look at the bigger factors. That's just my view. Again, people don't have to agree, but I think the bigger factors are more important.
You are free to take that position, but it is at the expense of the respect of women.
But then you will never be able
to take that position.
But here's the thing: then you're only going to get people like Jessica and Planner willing to come in and have these conversations, and I want to find the people.
But it's not.
And
it's not my problem if they're not willing to have the conversations.
But I want them to
play in. Right. But I don't need to play into their delusion to get them to have a conversation.
No, I
because
understand that.
From my point of view, there isn't a conversation. It's not an argument that women are adult human females and that there's no such thing as male women. This isn't even a sensical conversation.
Well, let me ask Planarwalk that, and I do want Michael to join in real quick. Planner, one of the questions I always want to ask you is, because you had said earlier you're a male, because I know that. I knew you before you transitioned. What do you say to trans people that actually say they are literally changing biology, that they are an actual woman? Because as Mary and everybody else knows, when people say trans women are women, that's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. I think that is absolutely harmed the trans community to no end, because they went past just, we want to pee, or we just want to exist, to, we are literally women. And then that's when they invade the sports. That's when they invade the bathrooms. That's when they invade the changing rooms. That's the bigger issue. I think that is the psychology of the ideology that I'm against. So what would you say to that, Planner?
I would say that when people say things like trans women are women, or if they say I am like if someone were to say I'm biologically a woman, it's important to actually look closer at, rather than taking that as a face value statement of what you think they're saying. Because sometimes, because I have seen trans people that will say that they are biologically a woman, and what they usually mean by that is that their hormones align that with.
Planner, let me stop you. They literally say their biology is a male. They are born male. They're male. They're biological males. They are. I think. Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, but. Doesn't POL what the hell? Erica, what the hell is her name?
Erica.
Piss off lawyer. Doesn't piss off lawyer argue that people actually are changing biological sex, if I'm not mistaken?
I don't know if that's her position, but I know that men like India Willoughby call themselves female. Yep. They are. And this is the point, coming back to the importance of language and not normalizing it for men to take, because they are going to continue taking and taking and taking in this way.
So, Planner, do you accept that there are actual people out there, like Willoughby is one of them, that actually believes that he is an actual biological woman? And if you don't agree with him, he'll try to cancel you or whatever.
He'll get very violent towards you if you don't agree that he's a female.
Like, nobody got violent in here, right? I mean, but you tell some of the trans people that are not actual women, and holy shit, they get visceral, they get vicious, they get invectives and pejoratives, and you're a transphobe, you're a bigot, you're a Hitler. I've been called everything in the name of the.
They act like
possible.
Men.
Yeah.
Because they're men.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to degrade men.
And they hate women.
I'm a man.
Even more
like
than regular men, because they view us as so beneath them and so unimportant that they can dehumanize us in such a way as to say,
that's not all men. That's not all men.
I'm talking about trannies. I'm talking about No, I'm talking about men who call themselves women for whatever reason. I don't believe that they have any respect for women. Otherwise, they wouldn't treat us as a costume.
Yeah. I understand. Go ahead, Planner.
I'm trying to remember the thought that I had because I had a particular. Sorry about that.
Go on.
You're very offensive to women, Planner. I will just say this, that, you are a man. Every experience you have ever had and will ever have will be a male experience. And we women very much resent you and what you're doing.
I mean, she does have a point to that. I mean, everything about your experience only can exist from the frame of your biological sex. You cannot, like, for example, I cannot imagine what it's like to be a bat, right? If you read Thomas Nagel, what is it, what's it like to be a bat? He could never have the psychology of a bat, right? That's what his whole argument was, that bats have a unique experience. Their qualia, their sense data is unique to being a bat. They cannot know what it's like to be an elephant. I cannot know what it's to be a bat. I cannot know what it's like to be a female. Mary cannot know what it's like to be a male, right?
I'd go one step further. I'd say that nobody in this space knows what it's like to be someone else in the space. I don't know what it's like to be Steve McRae.
We understand that, but we still have categories, right? But we're all unique individuals. But there are every individual still falls into two categories, male or female. There are no other exceptions. And the trans ideology is that that's not the case.
Well, there are things that we can try to classify things. We could say that your experience is based off your biology, but if we just go off of that, then that doesn't really mean anything when experience is not dictated by biology. Oftentimes, experience is dictated by how you look, right? Like an ugly person.
A woman is not a look. A woman is not a look. It is a sex.
People will treat you differently depending on how you look, right? An ugly person will be treated very differently to a handsome person, right?
What does that have to do with you making it okay to make a mockery of women?
Well, when it comes to my experiences, like straight men hitting on me is not that.
They're not straight.
A result.
They're not straight.
Women don't define their womanhood by whether men hit on them or not. I'm sorry,
Correct.
that doesn't make you a woman. And you want to know here, everyone on this live, anyone who ever got their period by accident out in public and were worried it was going to show through your pants, put up your hands. That's a very womanly experience.
Well, and Planner, I would argue when you were asking me earlier about, where are you getting these posts? You are doing my job for me when you say that what makes you a woman is the fact that you have been sexually objectified by men. You prove to all of us listening here that you believe that being a woman means to be sexually objectified by men.
She got a hell of a point there.
That's a fetish.
She got a point.
Well, that's just one of the experiences that I've had. It's hard.
So you're just gonna totally blow by my point.
I think you need to address that a little bit more, because I mean, I hate to say that Mary's not an idiot. She can make some really valid points, and that happens to be a damn good point that I don't think you can just kind of gloss over, man.
Well, it's one of those things where I could bring up other things, right?
Well, but you didn't. That's the first place you went, an hour ago. That is the first place you went. That's what you brought up as an experience that makes you a woman, is the fact that you are now sexually objectified by other men. That means that you view women and you view womanhood as being objectified sexually by men, and that really speaks to my point that the whole lot of you are porn-soaked degenerates who don't respect women.
I would say that there are other aspects, but like if I were to say something like,
go ahead, what?
If I were to often say that I often just get ignored now because of the way that
So that makes you a woman.
Hold on.
You're saying you're a woman because men ignore you. Not because women ignore you, because men ignore you. You're a woman because men hit on you. You're a woman because men ignore you.
Let me finish.
I hit the mute button last time because last time Rose wanted to talk over Steve. Steve has made it very clear we are not going to talk over other people. Let Planner respond to Mary Kate's point, please.
So when it comes to what I'm saying, I'm not saying that these are what it means to be a woman. I'm saying
that
that
was
these
what you
are
said when I asked you, what do you think makes you a woman?
I'm saying that these are experiences that I've had that culturally women are more likely to experience than men. In a lot of cases.
What does that have to do with you being a woman? You are a man. Just because men have objectified you and men have ignored you, that doesn't make you a woman.
Because a lot of the experiences that I have had align with, what women experience.
No,
now,
can I interject? Okay, wait,
no, it doesn't, because you have been objectified as a man because you are a man. You have never had a female experience. You have never had a woman's experience, and you never will, because you'll never be a woman.
Hang on, both of you. Let me interject this. I think we can solve this real quick, because I think you're talking about two different things. Mary and I think it was Rose or somebody else, whoever was talking about having a period. That's an internal experience, right? External, having someone else hitting on you is an external. What I think they're arguing with you, planners, that you'll never have an internal experience of being a woman because it's just metaphysically impossible. You're not a woman, therefore you cannot have any internal things like experience a period. It's just not possible. So you're talking about being externalized, being validated to say that you're a woman. They're talking about things that are specific to internal factors of being a woman itself that no man could ever experience. That's, I think, is the difference. Mary, would you agree on that?
Yeah, and do you know what else, and like you like to say, affirms them as women is, being treated like shit by men, and breastfeeding a baby, they say, affirms them. And then they say, I got off on it, don't judge me. And they say that, watching sissy porn really affirmed them as a woman. Like, it all comes back down to objectification of women. And I think you've proven this all to everyone in this room. So thank you. Listen to trans people, everybody.
Let me respond to something, because you're saying that I was objectified as a man. However, was I objectified because I'm a man? No, I wasn't objectified because I'm a man. I was objectified because they viewed me as a woman.
That doesn't make you a woman.
Well,
she wants to know what makes you a woman, and I think it's a good question because, again, I'm on her side.
Nothing makes him a woman. Absolutely nothing makes him a woman, and honestly, it is about 1:30 where I am, and I'm kind of tired of arguing with Mr. I think women is a porn category here.
Let me just get Michael up here real quick, and then go ahead and we'll let you go. And then if anyone wants to do a summary or stuff like that. But I do want to say, Mary, thank you. Obviously so much for coming in. I have the utmost respect for you, and nobody's going to agree upon anything, but the fact that we can actually discuss it. That's what I love, because I don't see that in other places. I go to Facebook groups, and I've been on Reddit, I go to other places, and they can't discuss shit. It's absolutely fucking ridiculous. And it just drives me nuts, because here I am. I've been here, for a couple hours myself with you, and I probably got the most shit out of anybody because it's a struggle session. But you know what? I can take it, and I don't mind putting my views out there, agree, disagree. At least I will talk about it. But I'm telling you, and Mary knows this, it is damn difficult to find people that really do buy into gender ideology to have a civil fucking conversation or even begin to have the conversation. It's nearly fucking impossible.
So you understand, that I am not cherry picking these violent threats that they create. Like they are very much, they really are, no debate. And everything turns into threats and insults very quickly.
I was hoping that you were, when you first started your series, that you were kind of one-off, something wrong. But that was a hope for humanity, okay? That was just me wanting, to look for the best of humanity rather than think that there are people out there, not just a few of them, but a shit ton. That scares the fuck out of me, and I'm not even a woman. I don't have to use women spaces. But Michael, if you guys don't know Michael if the mic works, Michael's been around this kind of stuff for a long time. Michael, you want to talk real quick?
Hey, Steve, thank you very much.
Buddy.
Thanks for,
yes, of course.
Thanks for letting me speak. I've got nothing valuable to contribute, but I've got opinions. So I'll give that
Well, you're a man. Yeah, of course you got a man.
No. It's my right to be a woman. All right. So the word deviance is getting thrown around a lot, and I studied deviance as a major in sociology, and I know sociology is a bullshit discipline. You don't have to tell me I threw my money away. But at the same time, I think deviance, like Thomas Paine was a deviance for his time, and he promoted human rights, women's rights, equal rights, the abolition of slavery at the time. Galileo was a deviant for his time because he promoted a heliocentric.
Sure, but we're talking about sexual deviancy, and we're talking about things that negatively affect the culture and specifically women in terms of sexual deviancy.
I'm going to get round to your position, don't worry.
Gotcha.
So essentially, looking at these things from a textbook point of view, deviance is something that does change over time. But what you'll find is, because societies are built on social contracts, right? So that which is deviant today will not maybe potentially not be deviant tomorrow, or it could still be deviant. So it's based on social norms and the social contracts we all sign as members of society in order for that society to function. And here's where we get to Mary's point, where I think it's salient. What's happening with the gender ideology is it's unnaturally and without warrant running through society, ripping up all of the social contracts, that is destroying all of the actual norms that have functions, that have positive functions. So to give you an example, women's single-sex spaces is a norm. As well as it's an institution and a function in society, it's a norm and it's a social contract. All right. Now, social contracts are only legitimately torn up and changed or rewritten when all of society moves in that direction. But what we're finding in this case is, and I blame the influence of queer theory on the predominantly most of the alphabet, some of the numbers community. I blame the influence of queer theory on that community, and you can even see that from the split in the community, where you've got gays against groomers, you've got all of the, Andrew Doyle, Andrew Sullivan, you've got all of these gay voices speaking up against this infection, which is just completely racking society with nothing but deviance, which is where Mary's point is 100% salient. They're just ripping up social contracts without any regard for the function of those social norms or those contracts they've signed implicitly being a member of that society. So it's fine that society's norms change. Yes, Thomas Paine was a deviant in his time, and he's a hero now. Yes, Galileo was right, even though it made him a deviant for his time. But that doesn't mean that deviance is always progressive. That doesn't mean that deviance is always the way to progress. Let's break all the social norms in order to progress. Now, this philosophy comes from the root of the critical social justice ideology, and that's in the postmodernist school from Michel Foucault and Derrida and all these postmodern philosophers who falsely claimed that all knowledge is a power construct. All knowledge, anything you believe is real, is in fact brainwashing from the elites and then repeated amongst us plebs as knowledge. For example, gravity is an example they try to bring up. 2 + 2 is 4 is just a white supremacist patriarchal construct. I mean, these are the types of minds you're dealing with. So I always say that the most dangerous lies are those lies that contain portions of truth, and their lies contain portions of truth. Like I've just given you an example. Wrecking social norms is sometimes a symbol of progress. For example, the civil rights movement in the 60s in America completely offended the norms of the society, yet made the society better and progressed. This is what these woke people don't understand. Every infringement on a social norm is not a good thing and doesn't necessarily lead to progress. Quite often it can lead to regress. And when you see this in pre-World War II Nazi Germany, look at the way the society developed there. They broke all their social norms in terms of what was the existing social norms. They adopted an ideology, which I think we can all agree was fucking regressive, which was Nazism, right? So that's a few of the points. I have more points, but I'll shut up.
Let me wrap that up so I can get Mary. She needs her beauty rest, clearly. But Michael, I think you're absolutely right. You're talking about postmodernism and structuralism, and there's a great book that I tried to read, although it's a very dense book called "What We Owe Each Other" by Scallion on contractualism. But basically, that's the whole argument, that we do have societal contracts. And when I look at the transgender ideology, they're trying to break those societal contracts by force. by, if you don't agree with me, we will make you agree with me. And no movement in the history of mankind has worked well for people doing that. It might work in the short term, but not the long.
Danger, the real danger to epistemology and everything, to society, is it's not grounded in reality. Correct. All right. So Michel Foucault's goal was to put knowledge back in the hands of each individual, so that anything you subjectively believe is truth is actually in fact truth.
Yeah, and that's
so if I believe
in Krishna,
if I believe in Krishna, or I believe in Allah, or I believe in Jesus or anything, that becomes a fact by virtue of my belief. If I believe I'm a woman born in a man's body, that becomes fact virtue of my belief. And that's the most dangerous thing, because anytime you start from a false premise, you can never arrive at a correct conclusion, because your conclusion is based on rotten fruit. And so if your conclusion is based on rotten fruit, any remedy you try to create for a social problem that you perceive is also going to likewise be based on lies and be harmful. That's my point.
Yeah. All right, Mary, I know you got to get out of here. And I'll message you later on, but go ahead and wrap it up from your end. Make sure that people know to follow Mary. Follow her. Go look at her pinned tweet, and then next time they can be more aware of what she actually does on Twitter. But go ahead, Mary, and then we'll get you out of here.
I appreciate you having me up here, and I think that having these conversations, I think being able to talk about this stuff is important, and I think that a big reason that this ideology has been able to take such sinister root is because of their policy of no debate, of canceling and threatening women or really anyone who speaks out against it. So I do think these conversations are helpful, and I would just ask all the men in the room to kind of have a little look at yourself and ask yourself, if you have been told by women that this is harmful and detrimental and offensive, just ask yourself, do I respect women enough to take that into consideration? And I appreciate...
Thank you, Mary. And I agree with you about the conversations, very much so.
Yeah. I appreciate Planner kind of coming in here, because I feel like it really bolsters my point of view.
I would say he's a big boy, but let me tell you, Planner's been around and been through some shit back in the day with flat earther stuff. So he's basically dealt with a lot of shit.
Can I just say something, Mary, Cate, before we get out of here? So just like a lot of people said, love your work. Absolutely. It's hilarious and informative. I love it. You mentioned the DSM-5. I would recommend you look at the similar entries for the DSM-4, because like for one example, people got into the idea of trans people being pedophiles and stuff like that, which in the DSM-5 they actually listed under paraphilia as pedophilic disorder, and in DSM-4 it's pedophilia is its own thing. So there's definitely differences between those two, and I would recommend you check out the DSM-4 for added information and maybe look into why they changed it.
Okay, I will do that. I would also ask you to keep in mind that, the DSM-5 and, all of its iterations are used widely internationally all over the world to, diagnose these things and treat these things. It's also privately owned. And the donors generally are these big pharmaceutical companies who have a stake in doctors then using these guidelines. So, the people who write these things are questionable in their motives from the get-go. And I will look at what the DSM-4 said, but, for the DSM-5 especially, these are just, in my opinion, normal personality traits. And, if it has to do with hating your body so much, there are plenty of other nearly identical conditions, but not focused on the sex organs specifically, that we don't ever treat the same way that we are treating these people. And I think it's just a money grab. I think it's preying on children. It's preying on the mentally ill. It's preying on people who are having a tough time in life. I just think in general, it's very predatory to women as well. But I very much appreciate you guys having, and thank you, Steve, for having this.
Thank you.
And thank you to everyone who came up to speak. And I'll be around, but I got to get to bed.
All right. Good night, Mary.
Good night.
When you drop out, Marjaka wanted to speak on some things, and I finally was able to get them in. I can only have 10 speakers at a time because that's his Twitter limitation.
Yeah.
So, Marjaka, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I would like to. Thank you, Steve, and thank you so much, Mary Kate. Your voice is so important, and you were just so unbelievably funny. And I wanted to come on, and it was reiterating what Mary Kate just said, which was about, it's weaponizing mentally ill men, women, and children, and as well as children, adolescents, and young adults with underdeveloped brains. It's almost like these kids are being not only indoctrinated with this ideology, but they're being pushed to the front and said, you need to listen to the children's voices. But they're not the children's voices. They're the voices of the people that are indoctrinating them. But the other really concerning thing for me is that we can't just blame men. There is a lot of women who have a vested interest in pushing this ideology. And they're pushing and normalizing things like prostitution, surrogacy, abortion. And as Mary Kate said earlier, we shouldn't be normalizing these things. We shouldn't be commodifying women and treating their wombs as they're available for rent, and women's bodies as something to be sold. And that's women doing that, not just men. So I was hoping to get Mary Kate's thoughts, but I think she had
to go to bed.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the fact that you're not just trying to throw it on the men, right? Because people can only do so much, right? And I've learned this a long time ago. You can never please everybody, and so I have to make considerations. I can never be 100% toward any particular view, because if you move to 100% to any one major side, you're going to lose other people. And my goal is to build bridges and not to tear them down. So my particular position is a little bit different than other people's, because this is what I like doing, right? And so, if you want to have fair criticism, like for example, me using pronouns, like calling somebody she or he, go ahead, that's fair criticism. But at least try to understand my perspective, that I do so with a reason, right? It's not out of disrespect to women. It's out of, I want to be able to have conversations and build bridges. And the only way to do that sometimes is to have certain accommodations that I'm willing to make that other people may not be willing to make. Right. And so that's all it is. But I appreciate the fact that you didn't try to lay it all on men, because a lot of women are doing this as well. A lot of women love, for some reason, having trans kids, love going to the doctor and Munchausen by proxy. Trans by proxy. Yeah, trans by proxy.
Trans by Munchausen.
That's a real thing. I believe that to be a real thing, even though it may not be diagnosable. But yeah, I've seen that the kids are literally just kind of parroting the views of the parent. Because when I have somebody tell me their 2-year-old child told them they're trans, and they knew they were trans and blah blah blah, I'm like, well, where the hell did they get the term from? They didn't know shit. It was told to them. It was they learned it from somebody. You're not coming out of the womb with any knowledge of what gay, trans, or anything else is. I think that there may be predispositions to have certain kind of attractions to people, right? So when people are born gay, I think there's some truism of that, right? And I think it's genetic and hormonal factors. But there's a propensity that child growing up is going to probably end up being attracted to the same sex. I think that's probably more nature versus nurture, although there's obviously a mixture in many cases. But I don't know any case where somebody's going to be, I'm born and I'm just going to, for some reason, be born thinking I'm the opposite sex. I think that is almost exclusively environmental. Am I wrong on that?
Children think they're a lot of things. Doesn't make it true.
Right. So it's environmental, right?
100%.
I don't think it's necessarily 100% environmental. I think there are actually children at the age of around 2 or 3 that are actually coming and saying to their parent, I feel like I'm a girl, but it doesn't make it true. those same children are coming and saying, I'm a pirate or I'm a mermaid, but we're not cutting off their legs and attaching a fin.
Right, but they might actually just like wanting to wear women's clothes, or they might be more effeminate, want to play with, what would be stereotypically, women, girls' toys and things of that nature, and that's why they probably feel that way. But you like you said, it's a feeling like anything else. Like they want to be a pirate, and so it's the parents that are taking that minuscule amount of, oh, my child may believe this, and running with it, saying, oh, well, we have to make it true in any way possible, including severe medical intervention. That's the problem.
It's mostly the moms. It's
It
the
mostly
beta
is.
dads
You're right.
that are sitting in the back looking like they don't want to be there in these interviews. It's the moms. I've read somewhere like 50% of women with a trans child have borderline personality disorder. This needs to be looked into. And the husbands are just doing whatever.
I've seen that paper that you referenced just there, and there was a few problems. There was actually selection bias where they didn't choose any kids that have any kind of problems at school or anything for the control group, and it is very well known that disorders are able to be passed down from parent to child.
Planarwalk borderline personality disorder is actually due to trauma in childhood. It's environmental. It doesn't have a massive biological or genetic origin.
I think it is, like, when it comes to, from what I've heard, and I might be wrong on this, but if you have a condition, as like if an adult has a condition and then has a child, it's more likely that that child will have a condition, even if it's a condition that is caused by, that has environmental factors to it.
Well, parents pass on their maladaptions to their children, so of course it's going to be passed down. It's intergenerational.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean.
So if you were to have a control group that doesn't have any kids with any kinds of problems, then you're going to skew the results. You'll introduce bias in your results.
If I recall correctly, the percentage in the general population of borderline personality disorder is around 2%. And I believe in that study, I think it was like around 40 to 50% of the trans children had a mother with diagnosable borderline personality disorder. That's very significant.
That is that could be something worth looking into, but you also have to remember that study also had a very small sample size as well, so that could skew different things. There's a number of problems with it. I can't remember all the problems at this point, but I do remember reading it.
The whole aspect of trans children is 5 minutes old. We can't know anything except for we understand innately as mothers that this is garbage, and that
there have been longer-term studies now. There has been that 15-year, was it a Dutch study or Netherlands study that did 15-year study that said that a lot of these things are just not helping. In fact, it increases suicidality rates, and most children, almost the entirety of children grow out of it. A very, 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 very small don't, but it's a vast majority do, and I think that's what would be expected.
Can we also acknowledge that a lot of these, I have many family members in the teaching field, and many of these kids that are expressing this are autistic, and they're being taken advantage of.
That's a great point, and I really think that should be a question that should be posed to people. Why is there a higher degree of people that have autism, ADHD, ADD, what they call neurodivergent? If you look at a lot of the people, and let's look at the space for Twitter. Okay, one sec. Look at Twitter as a microcosm. If you look at the people that are on Twitter that are espousing transgender views, there is an overwhelming, and Mary kind of alluded to this, but there's an overwhelming amount of them that have fetishized this. Almost all of them have avatars, of cartoons, the furry, have pronouns in their bio, talk about being, like I said, neurodivergent and all this other stuff. Why is it there's a high degree of that, which I don't see for other things?
Can
I
Can
could
I
actually answer that.
I want everybody to answer. Go ahead.
I do have to go soon, so can I speak first?
Yeah, go for it.
Yes, I know you have only about
Okay,
10 minutes, so go ahead.
Yeah, I've got like 2 minutes now. So I would say that when it comes to things like neurodivergency in the trans community, and it is well noted that that is a thing, I would say that it's because often when you're neurodivergent in one way, it can make it easier to be or not so much easier, but it is likely that you might be neurodivergent in another way. There is a significant overlap between people with ADHD and with autism. A lot of people who have autism also have ADHD. When it comes to gender dysphoria, if we acknowledge that it could be something in the brain that is causing that, then it would make sense that gender dysphoria could be associated with being neurodivergent.
But wouldn't that be psychologically intervention? Why have surgical intervention? Why put kids on HRT and puberty blockers and tell a 12-year-old child they need radical double mastectomies? And again, this is a statistic that people would ask. Hey, somebody in my live chat asked, Steve, are you spewing opinions or facts? And I'm like, well, most of this is my opinion, but there are certain facts. And in 2021, between the ages of 13 and 17, there was something like 760 some odd kids that went through some kind of gender reaffirming surgery, which mostly was double mastectomies. This is unreal. This is barbaric. A child can. Why would anybody advocate, especially a parent, advocate that something be medically done, surgical, that will lead to complications, and lifelong changes to sexuality and sexual function as an adult, and all these other things? You couldn't breastfeed your kids if you have a double mastectomy. But why would they say that a child is capable of making these decisions? That's ludicrous to me.
Attention and virtue signaling.
Well, yeah, it's a false positive based on a moral aspect of kids potentially suiciding because they're not affirmed, or
which they know is bullshit now. They know that was argumentum ad what do they call it?
Can I just
say
say
it's even worse than that, because the explorative therapy that would allow you to actually diagnose the ADHD or the autism, that is called conversion therapy, but by the activists. So what was happening at the Tavistock is that clinicians weren't allowed to actually explore the ADHD or anything like that. They went straight onto the puberty blockers, straight onto the surgery, the double mastectomies, etc.
And that's why Tavistock got closed down too, and they also weren't fully informing people of stuff. They were not. The Tavistock literally shut down because they were not protecting the most vulnerable of society, which was the kids. That's even what it says. That's the reason why they got shut down. They were not protecting the most vulnerable of society.
Right, and it's because you're talking about kids that are very prone to depression and ostracization,
exactly,
and believing in quick fixes, it because that's all they know. Right, is the quick excuse like, oh, I broke the vase, I'm going to blame it on the dog, or the scapegoat, which is this affirmation towards gender and conformity and trying to garner affection and attention like that. And that's something that you witness a lot in VR nowadays too, where a lot of these people, they don't seem to get along because they're already socially awkward and depressed. And therefore, when they start using, like you said, with these avatars, much like the pictures and whatnot, they use female avatars, and then they start believing into the fantasy of, okay, I'm a woman. Oh, look, I'm being catered to and have more attention because I display a woman. Therefore, I am.
It's the reinforcement from the peers, the teachers, and parents.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's my position.
Have you guys heard of the prison mindset, where like a lifer will eventually turn gay if given the option, because that's all he has? It's very similar to that in the sense that because they have limited options and the ostracization and believing that this is all they have, this is what they turn to, which is something that I've witnessed quite a lot in VR spaces that later on, projects outwardly, because obviously, there's more to it than VR.
Don't you think they're easily manipulated as well?
Yeah, they're easily manipulated, but that's because of needing because we are a social being. We cannot have a tribe. We cannot go without having a tribe. Not a lot of people are built to be a leader or alone in that facet. So a lot of people seek out that tribalism. And in doing so, they'll seek out anything that affirms them or makes them feel better about themselves almost instantaneously.
That's also and therefore isolate each other. But isn't that why they also isolate each other and want to remain in their echo chambers, because they don't have the ability to defend against all these views? And I don't mean that disparagingly. That's not meant to disparage any of them, because autistic people can be some of the most brilliant people on the planet, but a lot of them don't have the social or locutionary skills or the ability to actually defend their positions in a way that would be something like when I put up my positions out there, I try to defend them. Right, but they don't have that skill set, and so what they do is they turtle up. They turtle up and they isolate themselves.
The funny thing is that the comment. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, because I really have to go, but I do want to say that I there's a lot of stuff I could say about this. So, Steve, I'll have to talk to you another time. I might actually do like a thing on my channel if you want to do that sometime. I'll have someone moderating.
I don't know if I've been on your channel before.
You have.
I think once.
I think we had a discussion about nuclear power or something.
Yeah, because the area that I actually was trained for was nuclear reactors. Go figure.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So anytime, man. I appreciate you coming in, and you're always been civil in these dialogues, and that's something, whether Mary will acknowledge it or not, I respect personally. Okay, so.
Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff that I could say, but I don't have the time for it. I'm already 4 minutes over, so yeah, I have to go.
Get out of here. Kicking the trans person out. All right, later.
All right.
Since I know you've had your hand up for a while, and I know you were waiting to get in, like I said, I'm only going to have 10 speakers at a time, so I had to cycle people. So, Sense, did you want to add something? And obviously, I got to start wrapping it up as myself.
I think Extra was in front of me, actually. Extra.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Hey, thank you for letting me speak. I just had a question. This is actually a serious question for the host. I was curious if you think Blair White is hot. That's all.
No, no. Blair, she wouldn't be my type anyways. Do I think that she's, attractive? Yeah, I mean, I guess. Yeah, sure. I mean, if I was like, hey, Steve, you've got to sleep with somebody who's biologically male, I'm going to pick somebody which is at least going to be effeminate, right? But I'm not attracted to her by any means. No.
So is there a trans woman, quote, trans woman in your mind that is attractive enough for you to think is hot?
I did think that the one that's not hot. I mean, that would be probably extreme, but I do think that the one that's in Superman, what's her name? She's really pretty. But I can't think of her name right off the top of my head. I'm drawing a blank. But I don't think she's hot. No. I mean, to me, you want to know what I think is hot as a male? I like Selma Hayek, and she's 58. That's hot.
Yeah, but that's an actual woman.
Well, yeah, she is. Yes, she's all woman. So that's what I what I'm attracted to, people, that kind of stuff. So
an actual woman.
Yeah, I happen to like actual women. Yeah, I'm a straight guy. Yeah, I'm a straight man. I don't make no bones about that. But again, I don't care if somebody's gay or something like that. It doesn't bother me in the least. I have 2 gay friends down here that want to take me to a gay bar.
Oh no,
like, oh, sure.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. It's just that, like, I've talked to some.
I would never sleep with a trans person.
Claim to be straight, right? But that have said to me that some trans women. I'm quoting. Some trans women are prettier than real women.
I don't think so. Yeah, no.
But they're not women, though.
No.
So it's just interesting to me that some men don't quite get it, that they're not women. But that's all.
But you make a good point, because I mean, there have been people argument. Was it ContraPoints, or was it? And I know there was Essence of Thought. If you guys remember, way back in the day, because I've been around YouTube a long time, there was somebody named Essence of Thought that basically argued. If you don't sleep with a trans person, you're automatically transphobe, right? And then somebody else ran with it as well, but I can't remember. I don't know if it was ContraPoints. Maybe Michael might remember. He's really good at fucking this memorizing ancient history of YouTube. But they were putting that out there, and I think that's the most dumbest thing in the world, because if that's the ideology they want to go with, right? If I'm somehow transphobic because I will never sleep with a trans person, then a gay person must be heterophobic when never sleeping with a straight person. It's like, no, people have the right to sleep with whoever they want. I don't give a shit. Just don't push it on anybody else. To say that you won't sleep with somebody makes you a phobic, no, that's just personal preference. Like, I'm not gonna ever sleep with Michael. He's not my type, even if I was gay. No offense, Sorry, Michael.
That's the point where it's like it's abuse. We need to acknowledge it for what it is. What the root of it. It is basically it's deceiving, invalidating, and infantilizing somebody in an aspect of saying, okay, you don't like quote unquote being gay, or you don't like sleeping with a man, you don't like sleeping with a woman, and I mean that's your own. I'm spacing on the word right now. But that's your own choice.
Predilection.
Yeah, and for someone else to try to gaslight you into believing a certain aspect that it's wrong when it's inherently not, because you're not causing harm to anyone else, you're not enforcing on anyone else, and that's the abuse. That's what they're trying to do, is use abuse tactics to push an agenda or a narrative that suits them and their particular needs. And we need to go back to that root of to acknowledge that, because the more we try to elevate the status of this and give it genuosity, it starts to blend and starts to manipulate the minds of people to not believing that it is abuse and making abuse more acceptable.
You weren't here when we were talking about this. And by the way, my Twitter feed is blowing up. No, I didn't block anybody from speaking. It's just if you have a really bad mic and you're just you keep not being able to mute and do stuff in a space, I'm probably going to remove you to bring somebody else in. I'm only limited to 10 speakers, so don't take anything personally, okay? Somebody in my live chat's losing their mind because I removed them as a speaker. It's nothing personal, okay? But you weren't here earlier, Virtual, when I was talking about lesbian, like guys that will think they're women and think they have a right to go into a lesbian bar and pick up lesbians. And if the lesbian doesn't want to speak to, doesn't want to like sleep with them, they're saying it's the lesbian that's the problem. That's, I hate, and I really don't like the word misogyny and misandry because I think these terms are overwrought. But in that particular case, that would apply. That's a male dominating his position to say that, oh, I believe this, and as a woman that they're trying to, want to have sexual relations with, if you don't agree with them, you're wrong. That's gaslighting 101.
Right, and we need to go back to the core of it instead of trying to elevate it to different statuses like misogyny or misandry or whatever that stuff. We need to acknowledge that it is either gaslighting or abuse or anything underneath the sun in that aspect. We can't keep trying to make new words to make it sound more eloquent when we need to go back to the roots and being able to acknowledge like general truths and world viewpoint truths versus the individual's truth or the realization of someone's fantasy,
Yes.
Steve, do you think it's become more difficult to discuss this because of the words are violence kind of garbage that they spew, and you can't actually have a discussion like this because they say, oh, if you don't agree with me, then it's violence?
Oh, that's a great question, and I do want to address that.
Can I take this one, Steve?
Yeah, but then I'll go next.
Yeah.
And real quick, for somebody who complained in my live chat about me talking the most, for them out there, I'm the fucking host live on YouTube with this right now, and my co-host is another Steve. We're both Steves. This is how you run a Twitter space, especially when you have a guest like somebody like Mike Mary, okay? It's nothing personal, but of course the host is going to talk the most because I have a show that I'm doing right now called the NonSequitur Show that I'm doing live on my channel with 30,000 people that subscribe to that channel. Okay?
Bring back common sense.
So give me a little...
Bring back common sense.
I don't understand why people like so entitled or so... This is what I'm talking about. This is the entitlement of society. I by the way, I had to set this up really quickly because Mary was supposed to come on at 9. I was going to do this at 9. I had to do it 90 minutes early, and so it was kind of I had things I got to do before I do these shows, and I haven't done a NonSequitur show in probably 2 months because I hadn't been feeling well. But I finally started feeling well. My blood work came back, all normal for a change. I finally wanted to do an episode on my channel because I hadn't been. I was on my other channel, which only has like 15,000 subs. And I still can't fucking please everybody. This is what I'm saying. You can't please everybody. Don't fucking try. Go ahead, Steve, and answer that question because it's a great question, and I want to answer it next. After you.
So about the idea that specifically it was about the after that rant
about
words are violence.
That was a good rant. Sorry.
Can you please restate the question so that I can answer it?
The words are violence, how you can't have a disagreement, an argument, a conversation, because if you say something that offends them, then your words are violence.
So the way that I've learned to counter that is the way that I've learned to counter that it's you have to bring up something that they're defending that is absolute bullshit. So when I get, oh, well, words are violence, one argument that I had that actually got me labeled as a transphobic conservative when I'm not either of those by definition. It was about a law being passed in Arizona regarding drag queens and other sort of displays like that being under the same legislation as strip clubs, meaning 18 and up. You have to follow gentlemen's clubs rules, no kids allowed, that sort of thing.
Makes sense.
So it does make sense. So when someone says, oh, well, you're being violent to trans people, I often fire back with, really, the same trans people that complain about kids in adult spaces, the same trans people that complain that laws intended to fight pedophilia are anti-trans laws. Like, you have to fight back with facts, and as much as I don't like Ben Shapiro, I have to agree with his statement of facts don't care about your feelings. They don't. So they're going to attack you based on how they feel about what you're saying. The best thing to counter with is, well, then you just don't feel good about facts. You don't care about what's actually happening.
My view is similar, but I've noticed a change in the landscape, and this is great because it kind of wrap it up a little bit on this court of public opinion, because the court of public opinion has changed on that. Because who asked that question? It was my dog's mom, right? Great question. Things have changed. Now, it used to be back in, I would say, 2017, 2018, in that area of time, when a lot of this stuff was happening, words were being argued as violence, and I thought that was absolutely stupid. And it was either you agree with us or you're a transphobe, and if you say anything, it's violence. And the court of public opinion back then was tending to side with a lot of them, and I got canceled many times over. I've been canceled like 20, 30 freaking times at least. And I didn't side with that, right? I was like, no, words are not violence. They can never be violence. I'm just a hair from being a free speech absolutist, okay? This is a little bit that holds me back, but for the most part, ostensibly, you can probably say I'm a free speech absolutist for all practical purposes. And so words cannot be violent. They're words. Words are communications in order to facilitate dialogue. Their words have connotations. Words have denotations. Words have usages. And matter of fact, Michael and I used to argue like cats and dogs on this very issue. But we all put that aside for bigger problems, such as this. And I actually have a lot of respect for Michael. But we disagreed vehemently on certain things way back in the past, but I think I've always had a mutual respect with each other. But he remembers this, and maybe he can answer third on this, because he remembers essence of thought. He remembers the trans community saying words are violence. But you know what? I don't see a lot of that now, because I think the pushback on that was basically fuck off. Words are not violence. If you're not man enough to put on your big point pants and have a conversation and treat people like an adult and treat them with respect to have a conversation, then nobody wants to hear from you. That's what I've learned over the years. My dog's mom, would you agree on that?
Can I jump in quickly, since you brought me up? Because you've brought it.
I talk about you a lot. I talk about you a lot.
No, you've actually brought it right round to the point where I was happy just to listen to this conversation, and then a previous speaker who's gone now made a point, and that's when I was like, nah, fuck that, I'm speaking. A previous speaker, she said, the reason why we're in this mess with men in women's toilets is because of free speech. And that's when I was like, nah, fuck off. Because it's the opposite. If the reason we were in this mess was because of free speech, and I understand there is a free expression element to this movement, and I understand that, I definitely do. But if we were in this mess because of the principle of free speech, then why is this same cohort of people in society trying to ban speech that offends their ideology and that takes away their reason to be in the female spaces? They wouldn't be trying to curb free speech if free speech was the mechanism by which they could attain what they wanted. No, they know free speech is the obstacle. And so in order to surmount that obstacle, Yeah, or in order to surmount that obstacle, they need to suppress free speech with quote-unquote hate speech laws or misgendering laws, or take women out of laws and put gender in instead, as you're seeing is causing massive chaos. So no, that was the reason and you started bringing up free speech and everything, and I thought, well, no, I'm just going to speak up. And if I can, so that's pretty much my point. That was why I came up to speak.
So I wasn't way off base on that, right? I mean, because again, people have the right to opinion, and I respected the person who was coming down on me for that. This is a struggle session, and by the way, if you guys don't know what struggle sessions are, go look it up. Go look at the Red Communist China when they would have actual struggle sessions. You know that this comes from persecution of people that were doing wrongthink. And they would be publicly persecuted in the community and in schools and in the public in Red China. And so I will suffer through the arrows and all that kind of stuff, but I still have my opinions, and my opinions I don't think are irrational, and I don't think that they're harmful when I say that free speech is the solution to this stuff, not the problem.
You're exactly right, Steve. And for a final point, can I just say, you're an atheist, not an agnostic.
And I can remove you. You know that, right? I got power.
I'll be quiet now. Let someone else speak.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I just wanted to say real quick, in the words of Jordan B. Peterson, it's in order to be able to think, you have to risk to offend. And the reason for that is because if the reason why they want to take that away is because they don't want you to be able to think. Because if you were able to be able to think, you would be able to acknowledge the risks, the dangers, the larger picture, and the longer consequences that can happen from allowing such things to exist or such things to happen in general. So they don't want you to think, because if you do, you're not going to allow them to do harm.
That's a good point.
That's the whole point.
No, that's a good point. I mean, again, I recognize that I offend people. I offend people on the right. I offend people on the left. I offend the center people. But you know what? My philosophy has been, I don't give a flying fuck. If they want to have the conversation, let's talk about it. If they don't, nobody's forcing them to. And that's the big picture. I don't want to police speech. And when I get people to come in and try to argue policing speech, whether they do so from a woman's perspective or a man's perspective or any perspective, I'm going to be against that. And that's just the ideology that I stand upon. Because I think Michael's exactly right. I think free speech has to be, regardless whether you agree with it or not, has to be there. You have to allow free speech, or you do get these echo chambers, and you do get people pushing into these legislation things to try to make certain things, mandated by law. And I would rather have somebody that I totally disagree with, but have them the ability to have the free speech to do it, because I believe in the arena of ideas, the best ones are generally going to go forward, and on the average. And when they don't, when you have bad ideas like this that took hold years ago, if you notice, like I said, the landscape is changing, because as somebody, I think it was Virtual, brought it up, when you base something on a fundamentally wrong principle, which is the principle that trans women are actual women, then society is going to go, wait a minute, we've had enough of this.
Yeah, believing in a false positive doesn't allow room for discourse and to be able to talk about the situation and the problems that happen from allowing these things to happen in common space. That at one point or another, you're going to offend somebody, and to not be willing to take in that criticism will not allow you to build upon the moral principle that you started off with.
Well, they're afraid of the repercussions, aren't they? They're afraid
Right.
of being labeled a transphobe or being canceled. I don't do this for views. I don't do this for anything. I don't make shit on YouTube any longer. People, that, I used to make a pretty decent income on YouTube, and I make nothing hardly anymore. And so I don't do that for this. I do these discussions because I like them and I enjoy them, and I think that they help. I think that they make a difference, because I've changed the minds of people. I'm sure Michael has changed the minds of people. We've all changed the minds of people, and have the ability to do that is incredible. And have your own mind changed, and have your own mind changed as well.
You just gotta be open to it.
I agree.
First,
I definitely agree.
Free speech is the ultimate American principle, and I think if you'll agree that authoritarian governments go hand in hand with compelled speech, and we can't ever go there. I mean, look at Canada. It can happen, and it could be coming our way.
Do you know that the person that was going after me on that was Canadian?
I know.
Yeah. And again, Jordan Peterson, Canadian. And so I think that they might have a different mindset. And I think that's just a cultural thing. Again, I don't think it's a sexist thing. I don't think it's women versus men. But I do think that America probably has a little bit different mindset than maybe like a UK or Canadian or something along those natures. Because it's just, again, cultural differences do factor in some capacity here. So, anyways, I'm going to have to start wrapping it up myself. It is getting late here. Save something for next time. So basically, say what you got to say, and let's kind of end this. I will be having these hopefully every Saturday, as I could. So follow me on Twitter, and on my YouTube channel, NonSequitur Show, and Steve McRae. I have both those YouTube channels. But I'm trying to have them a little earlier. I think 9 o'clock got maybe a little late, so I may want to push it back earlier to 8, and if it's more convenient. But let me know what you think. Message me either directly on Twitter or just tweet me what you would prefer, and let's have more of these, because I think these are great discussions. So anybody want to say anything before we wrap it up?
No, I just want to thank you for having me and letting me speak, Steve. I'm going to bounce, but thank you very much, man.
Oh, absolutely. And I love having you in. So
anytime you need a co-host to help moderate things when it gets a little chaotic, you let me know, dude.
Oh, absolutely. Dude, I didn't even let you know. I just did it. I didn't even ask you.
Yeah.
As
soon as I saw it, I was like, yeah, you know what? I better hop in. Things are getting a little wild.
All right. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and drop down a listener if you don't want to speak, and then I want to make sure that I got everybody in. So I know Rock's already has talked. Mary Janka, drop down. Anybody who has a hand up, this is your last chance.
Yep.
So
it is after 2 o'clock in the morning. I am.
Okay. Doesn't look like it. So, anyways, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing on the Non-Sequitur Show. You can find me there. You can find me on Steve McRae channel, where I talk about philosophy, logic, and I talk about some trans stuff on there too, but very rarely. I try to do more logic and philosophy stuff. I have a blog on epistemology. So please message me if you want to be a part of these things. I might have to do next time, because again, these are getting popular. I might have to let people know who the speaker is going to be. So if you want to be a speaker and have spots, message me, because we can only have 10, and I had about 20 people who wanted to speak, and I feel bad. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up, and I'm going to end the space, and it's going to kick everybody out. But if you want to listen to this later on, it's going to be on the Non-Sequitur Show. It's live right now, but I'm going to be ending that. And then leave me a comment there too. It gets some engagement over there. So I appreciate it. Good night, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you later on the Non-Sequitur Show. Good night.